Chapter 606. Facing the overjoyed Yixuanji, Tang Zheng looked a little embarrassed, but Yixuanji was even more embarrassed, and said angrily, "It's good that you're okay. What happened just now? We actually came out unscathed." "What was my situation just now?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. Yixuanji was stunned, and looked at him suspiciously, not knowing why he asked such a question. After a moment of hesitation, he told him the truth. "You were like a completely different person just now, like a stranger." Yixuanji muttered in his heart. He was even in awe of Tang Zheng just now, but at this moment, he could not say such words. Tang Zheng understood, this must be the work of Qi Yu's heart. It controlled his thoughts again. He could not help but frown deeply. This kind of thing happened twice in a row, and not long after. Was this a good thing or a bad thing? "Ah, my hand!" Suddenly, Yixuanji screamed, pulling Tang Zheng back from his thoughts. His left hand was already distorted, as if it was about to turn into a wisp of black gas. "Oh no, the Styx River just now has the effect of devouring souls. Your soul has already been damaged. If you don't quickly return to the human world and let your soul return to Yang, then something bad will happen." Tang Zheng was shocked. He did not dare to delay any longer, and quickly put the 4 symbols venerable back into his sumra pouch, but he immediately found a clue. The 4 symbols venerable after fusing was easier to control, but Tang Zheng felt that its power would definitely be stronger than the 4 symbols venerable alone. "Let's return to the human world." Tang Zheng took out the black ghost messenger token, and activated it with his true qi. Previously, he used this token to enter the ghost world, but ended up in the Chakravarti king's territory. Because this token was issued by the Chakravarti king, it would naturally come to the Chakravarti king's territory. But returning to the human world was not that troublesome. He could use this token anywhere to return to the human world. Tang Zheng did not know this information, but it did not stop him from trying, so after a try, the token actually worked. The ghost gate opened. Tang Zheng grabbed Yixuanji's collar and jumped into the ghost gate. With a flash of light, the ghost gate disappeared. There was no longer any aura of these two in the vast ghost realm. The night was as vast as water, shrouding the Ya family's huge courtyard house. It was silent, and many houses had turned off their lights. However, the small courtyard and room that Yixuanji lived in were brightly lit and there were not many guards. Yixuanji laid on the bed motionlessly. His face was covered with a layer of green gas, as if he could die at any moment. Beside the bed sat 2 exhausted people, Yi Tianlei and Yi Dingdang. Yi Tianlei obeyed Tang Zheng's instructions, and absolutely could not allow Yixuanji's body to be harmed in the slightest. Therefore, these past few days, he barely blinked as he stared unblinkingly at Yixuanji, ensuring that he did not make the slightest mistake. Yi Dingdang obeyed Tang Zheng's instructions and left the small courtyard. Later, she found out that Tang Zheng went to the ghost realm alone to save someone. This news was novel and shocking, causing her heart to be in a mess. She could not sleep well at all, and was worried about Tang Zheng's safety every day. In the end, she could not help but break Tang Zheng's instructions and stay in this room every day, waiting for Tang Zheng's triumphant return. Because Tang Zheng had already absorbed most of the yin qi in this small courtyard, this environment did not harm Yi Dingdang much. Whoosh! A cold wind blew, and a black door slowly opened in front of the bed. A person walked out from behind the black door. Yi Tianlei and his daughter suddenly raised their heads and looked at Tang Zheng with surprise and joy. Yi Tianlei exclaimed, "Tang Zheng, you're finally back." Yi Dingdang was wild with joy, and threw herself into Tang Zheng's embrace, buried her head deep into his chest, and said emotionally, "I've been waiting for you to come back." However, the father and daughter could not see Yixuanji's ghost. Yixuanji stared blankly at them and looked around. When he found that there was no one else around, he could not help but frown, somewhat displeased. His life and death were unknown, but only this father and daughter pair took care of him. Where did the others go? He really wanted to grab the others and interrogate them, but he was helpless because he was a ghost and could not do anything to others. Even Yi Tianlei and his daughter could not see his soul. Where's the old man? Yi Tianlei was the first to react, and anxiously asked with concern. Yi Xuanji looked at Yi Tianlei with gratification and secretly nodded. He wanted to say something, but no sound came out. Tang Zheng let go of Yi Dingdang, patted her hair, and signaled her to calm down. Then, he meaningfully glanced at Yi Dingdang's soul, and said, "His soul has returned." "His soul has returned, that's great." Yi Tianlei was overjoyed. "Then where is it?" "Right in front of you." Yi Tianlei was startled, and blinked his eyes as he stared in front of him, only to find that there was nothing in front of him. "He's a soul, you can't see him," Tang Jing explained. Yi Dingdang looked at the void with interest and snuggled into Tang Zheng's embrace, as if she was a little afraid of this scene. "Then hurry up and wake up the old man." Yi Tianlei did not have any thoughts of fear, and only wanted to wake Yi Xuanji up. "As you wish." Tang Zheng clapped his hands, let go of Yi Dingdang, and walked straight to the bedside. Seeing Yi Dingdang's ashen face and weak breathing, he said with relief, "At least it's not too late." After saying this, he waved his hand in the direction of Yi Xuanji's soul, and Yi Xuanji's soul flew up, and lightly floated above his body. Yi Xuanji suddenly had a strange feeling, as if he was looking down at his own body. This feeling was not something that normal people could experience. "Tang Zheng, thank you." Yi Xuanji nodded towards Tang Zheng to express his gratitude. Tang Zheng was expressionless, and patted Yi Xuanji's chest with his palm, and a strong suction force was generated from his chest, like a whirlpool. Whoosh! The soul was completely absorbed into Yi Xuanji's body, and everything returned to normal. Seeing that Tang Zheng stopped casting, Yi Tianlei nervously asked, "How is it?" "All right, let's wait for him to wake up." "Thirsty?" Suddenly, Yi Xuanji's weak voice sounded, and his eyes gradually opened. A light flashed, and then, it was replaced by intense fatigue. Yi Tianlei was wild with joy, and hurriedly handed over the cup of water, and said, "Drink some water." Yi Xuanji happily drank a few mouthfuls of water, and let out a long sigh of relief. Then, he turned his head, and suspiciously looked around. Finally, his eyes fell on Tang Zheng, and asked, "What happened to me?" Yi Tianlei said in bewilderment, "You can't remember. You were unconscious, and in order to save you, Tang Zheng did not hesitate to brave danger, and bravely entered the ghost realm to save your soul, and let your soul return to life." Yi Xuanji's brows furrowed even tighter, and said, "Why can't I remember anything?" Tang Zheng, who had been silent all this time, was shocked when he heard this. Yi Tianlei was also slightly startled, and then looked at Tang Zheng, and asked, "Why can't he remember anything?" Tang Zheng thought hard, and said, "Maybe his soul was hurt, but this is not a big deal. As long as there is no big problem, everything will be fine." His soul was hurt. Yi Tianlei was shocked. Tang Zheng nodded, and said, "This is just my guess, but as long as he is fine, we can ignore other things for the time being." Yi Xuanji listened to Tang Zheng's words, but there was no reaction on the surface, but there was a flash of joy and guilt in the depths of his eyes, and silently thought, "Tang Zheng, I'm sorry, if I don't pretend to lose my memory, I really don't know how to face you." It turned out that Yi Xuanji deliberately lied about losing his memory. He remembered everything in the ghost realm clearly, and the shock in his heart could be imagined. But in the face of Tang Zheng's life-saving grace, he had no way to repay it. Moreover, with his attitude towards Tang Zheng back then, he didn't know how to face Tang Zheng. In the end, amnesia became the best excuse. Bang! At this moment, the door was suddenly pushed open from the outside, making a loud noise. A few people rushed in. It was Yi Tianming and his daughter. "Old master, you're finally awake." We've been waiting for you for so long, and you're finally back. Yi Tianming said excitedly, with a rich expression. A hint of coldness flashed in Yi Xuanji's eyes, but he immediately hid it. If Tang Zheng hadn't told him about Yi Tianming's actions in advance, he definitely wouldn't have guessed that Yi Tianming almost killed him. Yi Xuanji nodded gently, and said, "Thank you for your hard work." Yi Meiyu stepped forward and affectionately held Yi Xuanji's palm, and said, "Grandpa, I've been praying to the gods. The gods must have heard my prayers and finally returned you to my side." Yi Meiyu lied without blinking. She had never prayed before. If Yi Tianming hadn't insisted on grounding her, she would have run out to fool around long ago. Why would she care about Yi Xuanji's life and death? Yi Xuanji was expressionless, and his gaze turned to Yi Ku. This was his most satisfied grandson, but he didn't expect that she would almost become an accomplice this time. His previous vision was too inaccurate, and was not much different from a blind man. Yi Ku grabbed Yi Xuanji's hand and said excitedly, "Grandpa, have a good rest and recover as soon as possible. We must investigate this matter thoroughly." Yi Xuanji already knew that this matter was caused by the life-continuing pill, but he didn't blame Tang Zheng at all. In fact, this couldn't be blamed on Tang Zheng at all. If there wasn't the life-continuing pill, Yi Xuanji would have died long ago. Moreover, Tang Zheng didn't hesitate to risk his life to rescue him, which could be considered as being extremely benevolent. Since it's over, then forget it. I just want to be safe and sound. Yi Xuanji rejected. He already knew the answer, so there was no need to investigate thoroughly. The others didn't know the reason, but seeing that Yi Xuanji was determined to do so, they didn't dare to persuade him again. However, Yi Tianming and his two daughters looked at Tang Zheng with a complicated gaze. Originally, they didn't have much hope, but they didn't expect that Tang Zheng would really succeed. This time, Yi Tianlei's position in Yi Xuanji's heart would rise. He had to find a way to make up for his impression in the old man's heart. Chapter 607. Tang Zheng did not care about the scheming of the Ya family. Since Yi Xuanji was fine, he would naturally take his leave. Yi Xuanji sent Tang Zheng off with a complicated expression. His heart moved, and he said without batting an eyelid, "Ding dang, go and send him off." When everyone heard this, their expressions were all different. In the past, Yi Xuanji had always been blunt towards Tang Zheng, and even wished that he could cut off all relations with Tang Zheng. This time, he actually took the initiative to ask Tang Zheng to send him off. Yi Tianming's heart was in turmoil. He thought to himself that his worries had come true. The old man's attitude towards this brat had undergone a subtle change. Yi Tianming and Feng Xinyang, who had rushed over, looked at each other and smiled. This time, they had accidentally changed Yi Xuanji's impression of them. Then, the matter between their daughter and Tang Zheng would have a new turn of events. In fact, Yi Xuanji's emotions were also very complicated. The trip to the ghost realm had broadened his horizons, so there was actually such a magical land in a place that he did not know of. In addition, Tang Zheng's various actions had a strong impact on him. It turned out that he was the one who had truly hidden his strength, especially in the body of the four symbols venerable. The aura that Tang Zheng displayed when he was controlled by Qi Yu's heart caused Yi Xuanji to be both shocked and afraid. In the end, he did not even dare to ask about this matter. In short, Tang Zheng was definitely much more powerful than he had imagined. He suddenly realized, no wonder that old fellow Yan Padian did not hesitate to offend the Li Palace to protect Tang Zheng. Perhaps he had already discovered that Tang Zheng was extraordinary, which was why he dared to take such a huge risk. It was laughable that he actually couldn't wait to cut ties with Tang Zheng. He was truly sitting on a treasure mountain, but he didn't know it and instead pushed the treasure mountain into the arms of others. He couldn't help but curse himself for being old and foolish. It was not too late to mend the pen after the sheep had been lost. From now on, he had to firmly grasp onto Tang Zheng, this tree that was about to grow. However, due to his reputation, he could not personally make an appearance, so this task naturally fell to Yi Dingdang. Yi Dingdang was stunned for a moment, then immediately became excited. She didn't even care about the others and directly hugged Tang Zhang's arm in front of everyone and left the room with him. Yi Dingdang was overjoyed as she looked at Tang Zhang with sparkling eyes. In the past, she still had a kind of unyielding spirit towards Tang Zhang, but now she was completely convinced. How did you do it? All the famous doctors in the capital were helpless, but you cured him so quickly. Yi Dingdang couldn't help but ask curiously. Tang Zhang puffed up his chest and pretended to be mysterious. Of course, don't you know who I am? Humph, shameless. Yi Dingdang pouted, but the pride between her eyebrows was completely revealed. This made her even happier than her own martial arts increasing. How has your martial arts progressed during this time? Tang Zhang asked with concern. Yi Dingdang's face immediately filled with a confident smile as she said, I have already cultivated the Jade Women's Heart Sutra to the large success stage. Furthermore, I have been practicing the wind-chasing sword technique every day. Right now, I have already memorized the sword technique. My battle strength is like heaven and earth compared to before. Yi Dingdang was not exaggerating. She had quite a bit of talent in martial arts. After practicing the Jade Women's Heart Sutra day and night, her body had greatly improved. However, the Jade Women's Heart Sutra was a heart technique and not a technique. When Tang Zhang taught her the wind-chasing sword technique, it immediately made up for the shortcomings of the Jade Women's Heart Sutra, causing her strength to greatly increase. The wind-chasing sword technique was a sword technique left behind in Chi Yu's heart. It was not inferior to the heaven-flying immortal. Moreover, this sword technique did not require true chi or inner strength to drive it. It was completely a sword technique. This could save a lot of energy in battle, allowing one to achieve twice the result with half the effort. Then I will find a time to properly test you. Tang Zhang said with a smile. Yi Dingdang's eyebrows rose. She was ready to move as she said, I will accompany you anytime. Tang Zhang. Suddenly, an explosive shout rang out. It was like a sudden clap of thunder, interrupting the conversation between the two people. Yi Dingdang was like a little cat whose tail had been stepped on. Her entire body trembled as her hair stood on end. She vigilantly looked forward. Tang Zhang's expression did not change. With a calm and flirtatious look, he asked, It's the middle of the night. What are you shouting for? You will scare people to death. You also know that you will scare people to death. Just where have you been these past 2 days? I have almost turned the entire capital upside down, but I still haven't found you. Wu Jin's heart was burning with anxiety as she angrily roared. At this moment, she was like an angry lioness. Her eyes were about to spit out flames of anger. But Yi Dingdang, this little tabby cat, was not someone to be trifled with. When she clearly saw who it was, she immediately jumped in front of Tang Zhang to protect him and retorted without fear, Why are you making such a big fuss? Where Tang Zhang goes, why should I report to you? Wu did not even look at Yi Dingdang. He treated her as heir and walked straight towards Tang Zhang. With an unfriendly expression, he said, I promised sect master and master's wife that I would protect you well. I will not allow anything to happen to you. Tang Zhang shook his head and smiled bitterly. Wu Zhen was a stubborn person. He had intentionally gotten rid of her, but he did not expect her to have such a big reaction. Of course, Tang Zhang could not get angry. After all, the other party was concerned about him, and he did not doubt the truth of her words. In the past few days, she had probably turned the entire capital upside down. However, he was not in the human world, so how could she find him? Yi Dingdang was a proud person. Seeing her beloved being reprimanded like this, how could she endure it? Don't come any closer. Otherwise, I won't be polite. I won't allow you to speak to him in such a tone. Yi Dingdang said as if she was protecting her calf. Wu Qing glanced at her and said disdainfully, "Who do you think you are? You don't have the right to speak here." She was indeed angry. But these words also poked at Wu Zhen's nerves. Her eyes widened as she angrily shouted, "I will defeat you and let you know who I am." He casually broke off a small branch and with a few rustling sounds, he danced in the air with the demeanor of a big family. Wu was confident in her strength and did not put Yi Dingdang in her eyes. With a cold snort, she walked towards her. She thought that although she could not do anything to Tang Jing, teaching this girl who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth a lesson could be considered as venting her anger. The battle between the two beauties was on the verge of breaking out. Without any fancy moves, the two of them rushed towards each other. Tang Jing did not even have the time to say a word to stop them. Sigh, what was the point of this? However, Tang Jing did not rush in to stop them. Yi Dingdang's actual combat experience was too little. Marshall was a good opponent. I've endured you for a long time. Back then, I was chased by you until I was exhausted. Today, I will return all of it to you. Yi Dingdang said indignantly. This girl was also a vengeful person. Back then, she and Tang Jing were chased by Wu Zhen in the ordinary balance and almost died. Humph, you overestimate yourself. Marshall disdainfully curled her lips and raised her palm. The air around her palm began to distort. Roaring Flame Saber, her famous consummate skill. Now that her Roaring Flame Saber was a level higher than before, its power naturally could not be underestimated. Yi Dingdang did not have the slightest bit of fear. The branch in her hand was used as a sword as she attacked Marshall. The wind-chasing sword technique paid particular attention to speed. Even the wind was caught up. Therefore, when the sword technique was released, the attack had already crossed a distance of several meters and directly arrived in front of Marshall. Marshall's expression slightly changed, but she did not move an inch. The Roaring Flame Saber opened and closed, creating a sturdy barrier in front of her chest, blocking the branch. If Yi Dingdang had a sharp sword in her hand instead of a branch, the power would definitely be higher and the threat would be greater. However, although a branch was like a sharp sword, its lethality could not be compared at all. The Roaring Flame Saber swished a few times and cut off all the branches, turning them into bare branches. Moreover, it forced Yi Dingdang to retreat step by step. Now you know the difference between us. Marshall said coldly. Yi Dingdang was extremely embarrassed. She was so embarrassed that her cheeks were red. She knew very well that she was at a disadvantage in terms of weapon. It was simply a disgrace to the wind-chasing sword technique. Whoosh! She stabbed with all her might, dangerously attacking Marshall. However, Marshall's reaction was extremely fast. The Roaring Flame Saber immediately blocked the path of the branch and easily cut it off. Then, it rushed towards Yi Dingdang. The scorching hot air caused people to suffocate. This is not fair. Tang Jing sighed secretly. He was completely unable to achieve the goal of training Yi Dingdang. An evenly matched battle was the most exciting. Thus, he directly said, "Dingdang, I'll lend you the War Soul Sword." Yi Dingdang's eyes lit up. The War Soul Sword fell into her hands. Seeing this, Marshall's brows trembled. She coldly snorted but did not complain at all. The Roaring Flame Saber's attack immediately became even fiercer. With the treasured sword in hand, Yi Dingdang was overjoyed. She was in high spirits as she cast a grateful glance towards Tang Jing. She immediately displayed the wind-chasing sword technique. Sword light danced in the air. Its power was not something a branch could compare to. Shwa shwa shwa, it went straight for Marshall's vitals. Marshall's Roaring Flame Saber no longer dared to clash head-on with the War Soul Sword. The wind-chasing sword technique focused on being graceful and graceful. Its power was like thunder. The situation of the battle immediately changed. Yi Dingdang was no longer passively taking a beating. The power of the wind-chasing sword technique was completely displayed by her. Marshall's face suddenly changed as she exclaimed, "What sword technique is this?" She finally discovered the extraordinariness of this sword technique. She was sure that Yi Dingdang's cultivation was not as good as hers, but because of this sword technique, Yi Dingdang's battle prowess had greatly increased. Although Marshall believed that he would not fail, he did not have absolute confidence that he could immediately take down Tang Jing. Yi Dingdang's eyes finally revealed a pleased expression as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her shoulders. However, her attacks did not stop. Instead, they continued on. Wind-chasing sword technique. Yi Dingdang did not hide anything. Never heard of it. Marshall said doubtfully, however, its power is indeed not to be underestimated. But if you want to defeat me like this, you might not be thinking too simply. As soon as he finished speaking, many hand shadows suddenly appeared in the air. They were densely packed and rushed towards Yi Dingdang to greet him. These hand shadows were like pieces of branding iron, branding the air red. The dense qi in the air soared into the air, completely enveloping the war soul sword that was rapidly attacking. However, Yi Dingdang acted as if she did not see it. She only caused the war soul sword in her hand to shine brightly. Streaks of sword light and strange sword techniques attacked one after another. Chapter 608. The berserk aura caused people's hearts to tremble in fear. If it wasn't for the fact that it was already late at night and that this small path was deserted, it would have definitely attracted many people's attention. Following a series of firecracker-like explosions, the wind stopped and the rain stopped. The war soul sword was pressed against Marshall's chest, while Marshall's palm blade was also stuck on Yi Dingdang's neck. As long as both sides used a little more strength, they would both bleed. Seeing that, Tang Jing immediately intervened between the two of them, and advised while beaming, "All right, let's stop here, don't hurt each other." This battle made Tang Jing very satisfied. He had tested Yi Dingdang's true level, although in the end, both sides were able to restrain each other and seemed to be evenly matched. However, Tang Jing understood that Yi Dingdang was not a match for Marshall. The reason why she was able to restrain Marshall was because she had the advantage of the wind-chasing sword technique. Because Marshall was completely unable to understand this mysterious sword technique, she had suffered a loss. But if the two of them were to fight again, Yi Dingdang would definitely lose. Even so, Marshall's expression could not help but change as he looked at Yi Dingdang in bewilderment. One could imagine the shock in his heart. She was very clear about the difference in cultivation between the two of them, but Yi Dingdang had actually relied on this sword technique to temporarily bridge the gap. This was something that Marshall could never have imagined in the past. "Who taught you this sword technique?" Marshall asked in a deep voice. Yi Dingdang snorted coldly. He subconsciously looked at Tang Jing, curled his lips and said, "Why should I tell you?" Other than Tang Jing, Yi Dingdang was the second person in the world who knew the wind-chasing sword technique. This was something that the two of them had in common, so how could Yi Dingdang casually tell others, allowing others to learn this sword technique? However, her reaction completely betrayed her. Marshall's fiery eyes immediately saw through the whole story, and looked at Tang Jing with a strange expression, and said, "This sword technique was actually passed down from your hands." Tang Jing did not try to hide anything. Instead, he asked with a smile, "What do you think of its power?" Wu coldly snorted and answered, "This sword technique is extremely powerful. If it were to fall into the hands of the enemy, it would be unimaginable, so don't just randomly spread it around." Wu Hing raised his eyebrows and said angrily, "What do you mean? What do you mean by anyone?" Marshall ignored him and continued to stare at Tang Jing, asking, "Where have you been these past few days?" Tang Jing shrugged and said, "I have some personal matters to attend to." Seeing that he was secretive, Wu knew that there was no result to asking further. He snorted unwillingly and said sternly, "In the future, if you want to go anywhere, you must tell me." This is the order of the sect master and mistress. Tang Jing declined to comment. Tang Jing sent Yi Dingdang back to school. Tang Jing skipped classes for as many days as school started. Therefore, on the second day, after the first class, the class organized a class meeting. This class meeting was the first class meeting since school started. There were many topics to discuss, the most eye-catching of which was the issue of the scholarship. As the top scorer of the college entrance exam, Tang Jing defeated everyone in the last semester's final exam and once again took first place. Tang Jing did not care much about the scholarship issue. He was thinking about when to go to the Northwest Desert to carry out the plan against the ghost realm. Although Tang Jing's exam results are first in the grade, he usually skips too many classes. His absenteeism problem is very serious. Moreover, he does not participate in the various activities of the class. This kind of solitary behavior that does not unite the students is too bad. A loud and clear voice said, "Ha!" When Tang Jing heard this, his ears immediately perked up. He raised his head and looked at the person on the podium. Tang Jing was not familiar with the person who spoke. However, he knew that the person was the class monitor, Chen Hao. It was just that he was too isolated and did not have much contact with the class monitor. Hearing that the other party criticized him so harshly, he was not angry. Instead, he was slightly interested. Seeing that Tang Jing was looking at him, Chen Hao arrogantly raised his neck and said arrogantly, "Tang Jing, tell me yourself. Do your usual actions have a very bad influence?" Tang Jing smiled faintly and said calmly, "I don't think so. Isn't university about everyone learning by themselves? I did not disturb the other students. What bad influence is there? You're twisting words and forcing logic." Chen Hao roared in exasperation, "Every time there's an activity in the school or in the class, we leave a bad impression on the school because of your absence. Don't tell me that this doesn't affect the other students." Tang Jing touched his nose. The university seemed free, but in fact, there were many class activities. There was also a morning exercise every week. The school would take attendance, and Tang Jing was indeed often absent. Although this did affect him a little, Tang Jing was sure that the effect was not big. The other party was making a mountain out of a molehill. Before Tang Jing could speak, Sinosaurus could no longer sit still. He slammed the table and roared with a voice as loud as a lion's roar, "Nonsense. Third brother's absenteeism was specially approved by Professor Qi Shaowen. The school knows that too. How can there be a bad influence? Yes, third brother has made outstanding contributions to the school. Back then, he was the martial arts champion and made everyone proud. Moreover, he was able to gain Professor Qi's favor. This is not something that normal people can do, humph." Wang Shiji and Zhou Yan were not willing to be left behind. They argued for Tang Jing. The 4 members of Dorm 502 were very united. Although Tang Jing was usually not in the dorm, they were very close. Everyone followed Tang Jing's lead. Of course, they would not allow others to slander him. Seeing the 3 of them arguing, Chen Hao felt a little embarrassed. He said with a red face, "You are all in the same dorm. Of course you will speak up for him. Don't think that we don't know what you're thinking. We usually hear a lot of rumors. Some people wholeheartedly want to become Professor Qi's disciple, but their strength is too weak. Professor Qi doesn't even look at them, and seeing that other students have this honor, they're jealous." Zhou Yan said with a burst of blood. This was not a fabricated slander. There was indeed such a rumor. As for that person, it was of course Chen Hao. Chen Hao had been an outstanding student since he was young. He was the center of attention. After entering university, he did not want to be left behind. He made a detailed plan for himself. He started as the class monitor, then entered the student council, and finally became the student council president. The student council president of Yenching University was not a small position. After graduation, many people could get a good job position and enter the government. Chen Hao successfully became the class monitor, but he gradually realized that he was not the center of attention. Instead, it was Tang Zheng who was the center of the crowd. Not only did he have a delicate and charming campus belle by his side, but he also had superb martial arts, which won him honor and influence that ordinary people could not reach. Chen Hao was not satisfied. He secretly swore that he would surpass Tang Zheng in the final exam. However, how could he be compared to such a monstrous person? But he did not give up. This time, the school selected scholarship. He thought it was a good opportunity to increase his influence and suppress Tang Zheng. Therefore, he specifically chose an opportunity when Tang Zheng was present to raise this sharp question. However, he did not expect the 502 dorm to be so united. They did not put him in their eyes and defended Tang Zheng so unscrupulously. Chen Hao had been in the student council for half a year and learned a lot of ways to deal with problems. He had also cultivated some shrewdness. Therefore, he did not fly into a rage. Instead, he took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He said, "Rumors can't be taken seriously. Let's talk about the facts. Today, we are discussing the scholarship issue. Everything else can be put aside for now. I propose that we vote by a show of hands. Those who think that Tang Zheng's actions have affected the class, please raise your hand." Swish, swish, swish. A few of Chen Hao's best friends immediately raised their hands. Many others watched for a while and also raised their hands. Tang Zheng looked on coldly. He noticed that Chen Hao was winking at many people, and then they raised their hands. Obviously, they had communicated beforehand. They really put in a lot of effort to target me. Tang Zheng thought jokingly. In the end, the people who raised their hands outnumbered those who did not. Chen Hao won by a small margin. Immediately, he became arrogant, as if he had something against him. He said, "See, this is the opinion of the masses. Therefore, in this scholarship selection, your moral education score will be 0. If his moral education score was 0, then the scholarship was basically out of the question. Although Tang Zheng did not care about the scholarship, it would not be good if the first place in the grade did not get a scholarship. The dormitory members could not sit still. Sinosaurus shouted, "There's something fishy about this. We can't accept it." Chen Hao's face darkened. He said, "You're doubting your classmate. You don't believe your classmate, right?" I think there's a big problem with dormitory 502. They're selfish, sacrificing the interests of other students for their own personal gain." Tang Zheng was dumbfounded. This Chen Hao had a glib tongue. He was really good at twisting the truth. Of course, he would not watch his friend be criticized. Originally, he did not care about the scholarship. Since the other party was so outrageous, then this brother must get the scholarship. Chen Hao did not think that his actions would have the opposite effect, causing Tang Zheng to feel a sense of disgust as he was very pleased with his plan. Suddenly, he saw Tang Zheng stand up and walk straight towards him. His gaze was not good, causing him to jump in fright. He subconsciously jumped back and said in fear, "What are you doing? Let me tell you, beating up a classmate is against the school rules. It's against the law." Looking at his cowardly appearance, Tang Zheng disdainfully curled his lips and said, "Hitting you would only dirty my hands, but let me tell you one thing, I still have to decide on this scholarship, so you can go play by yourself." Chen Hao's face flushed red. He said, "Don't brag. This kind of thing is not something you can decide with just a few words." "Is that so? Then let's wait and see." Tang Zheng smiled mysteriously. If a tiger did not show its might, people would think it was a sick cat. Chapter 609. Chen Hao gritted his teeth as he left the classroom and went straight to the school office to find Yan Liang. In the past, Yan Liang had always been proud of himself. When he graduated from his undergraduate degree, he bribed the leaders to stay in the school and became a counselor. In the past few years, he used his authority to get a postgraduate position. As a postgraduate at Yenching University, this title was very intimidating. But ever since Tang Zheng entered the school, he realized that Tang Zheng was his nemesis. Tang Zheng repeatedly went against his wishes and embarrassed him. Especially during the martial arts convention, when Tang Zheng heavily injured Yu Zhankue in front of him. This almost scared Yan Liang out of his wits. After that, he gave up and did not confront Tang Zheng head-on, but the hatred in his heart never disappeared. Instead, it grew with each passing day. When he heard Chen Hao's complaint, Yan Liang pondered for a moment and said with righteous indignation, "Chen Hao, you did the right thing. Students of Yenching University should have a sense of justice." Tang Zheng relied on his close relationship with some professors to not care about the school and the school's rules. This has a very bad influence and has seriously affected the school's normal teaching order. Although his grades are not bad, if a person's morals are too bad, then what's the point of having good grades? Instead, it will cause great harm to society. I support you. Tak Chen Hao's eyes lit up as he beamed with joy. He originally came to ask for help with a nervous heart, but he didn't expect the counselor to be so loyal. Tang Zheng, you've made too many enemies. God is helping me. Chen Hao thought proudly. Counselor, then we should use this opportunity to give him a severe punishment. Yan Liang nodded mysteriously. It's not good for a teacher to do something like this. Otherwise, the other students will think that the teacher is targeting him. Your method is excellent. Let the students decide for themselves. This is the will of the people. Our Yenching University values democracy the most. Although Chen Hao was slightly disappointed, he was also encouraged. His actions were recognized, so he should continue. Counselor, I understand. I will mobilize my classmates to make sure that he loses his scholarship, Chen Hao vowed. In dormitory 502, a group of people were indignant. They were all complaining about Chen Hao's treachery. Lao San, we can't just sit here and wait for death. We have to think of a way to fight back. Chen Hao just wants to drag you down and take the scholarship for himself. Tang Zheng furrowed his eyebrows. Even though he had vowed that he would win the scholarship, he still had not thought of a way to counter it. Chen Hao used public opinion to bribe his classmates, making the majority of them stand on his side. However, Tang Zheng disdained to do so. Moreover, he had very little contact with the other students and did not have many friendships. Indeed, no one would take the risk of offending Chen Hao to support him. The one who started the trouble should end it. Since Chen Hao has caught on to my absenteeism, then there is only one person who can solve this problem. Professor Qi Shaowen. Yes, let's go find Professor Qi. The others heard Tang Zheng's suggestion and agreed. They were all students and did not have much influence. However, Professor Qi was different. He was a leading figure in the field of archaeology. One word from him could destroy Chen Hao's conspiracy. Tang Zheng arrived at Professor Qi's office and knocked on the door. Tang Zheng was about to enter when he noticed someone standing at the corner of the floor. The person was staring at him intently. Tang Zheng's eyes narrowed. This person was definitely not a staff member of the university. The person's aura was too cold, like a man of iron. He was about to go up and investigate when he heard a haggard voice coming from the office. Come in. Just as he was hesitating, the person quickly disappeared. Tang Zheng shook his head and pushed the door open. He was stunned. The office was piled with documents like a small mountain. Qi Shaowen looked particularly small compared to the pile of documents. Professor Qi. Qi Shaowen turned around slowly. Ah! Tang Zheng could not help but cry out in alarm. The two of them had not seen each other for only a few months, but Tang Jing discovered that Professor Qi had aged a lot. His white hair had all turned silver, and the wrinkles on his face had deepened, especially the fatigue and haggardness between his eyebrows. "Professor Qi, what happened to you? How did you become like this?" Tang Zhang was indebted to Professor Qi. Therefore, Tang Jing did not have any special feelings for the other teachers and leaders in the university. However, he respected and appreciated Professor Qi very much. Seeing that it was Tang Jing, Qi Shaoan squeezed out a smile and said happily, "It's you, Tang Jing. Why are you here?" When he first met Tang Jing at the auction, especially when he saw his life-prolonging pills sold at a sky-high price, he realized that he and Tang Jing walked different paths. After that, many things happened and he never had the chance to meet Tang Jing again. "I'm here to talk to you about something, Professor Qi. Why do you look so haggard?" Tang Jing asked with concern. Qi Shaoan squeezed out a smile and stroked his silver hair. "Of course I look haggard when I'm old. Professor Qi, if there's anything I can help with, I'll do my best." Tang Jing did not pursue the matter. Instead, he expressed his stance firmly. "It's nothing. You said you wanted to talk to me about something. What is it?" Qi Shaoan asked kindly. Seeing how haggard he was, Tang Jing could not bear to disturb him. Qi Shaoan seemed to have guessed his thoughts. "Why are you being so formal with me? Just tell me what you want." Tang Jing did not beat around the bush. He went straight to the point. "Professor Qi, I'm in the middle of a scholarship selection. However, some people are using my absence as an excuse to stir up trouble. So, I'd like to ask for your help." "You're absent. Didn't you ask for a leave of absence from the university? Moreover, as far as I know, you were the top scorer in last semester's final exam. It's perfectly justifiable for you to be awarded the scholarship." Qi Shaoan was puzzled. "Someone is targeting me. You want me to solve this problem for you?" Tang Jing nodded. Qi Shaoan did not agree immediately. Instead, he looked conflicted. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, "All right, I'll solve this problem for you." Seeing his resolute and conflicted look, Tang Jing was puzzled. This should be a trivial matter for Professor Qi. Why did he look like he had made up his mind? There must be something fishy going on. However, Professor Qi was secretive and unwilling to talk about it. Tang Jing was at his wit's end. After bidding farewell to Professor Qi, Tang Jing could not stop thinking about Professor Qi's haggard look. He could not bear to see him like this. "No, Professor Qi has taken such good care of me. He must be in trouble now. I can't just sit by and do nothing. I have to figure out what's going on." Tang Jing suddenly remembered Professor Qi's best friend, Old Wei, the owner of the Imperial Treasure House. He must know what happened to Professor Qi. He drove to the entrance of the Imperial Treasure House. There were still many precious antiques in the Imperial Treasure House and business was booming. Old Wei was excited to see Tang Jing. Back then, Tang Jing had resolved the Millennium Blood Jade issue for him. He had always wanted to thank Tang Jing but never had the chance. Old Wei greeted him warmly. He smiled like a flower and said, "What a rare guest. I was wondering why I heard magpies chirping so early in the morning. It turns out that young Master Tang is here. Your presence brings light to the Imperial Treasure House." Seeing the owner of the Imperial Treasure House so enthusiastic, the other guests looked at Tang Jing curiously, wondering who this young Master Tang was. "Old Wei, can I have a word with you?" "Okay, let's go to the office." Old Wei was slightly surprised when he saw Tang Jing's serious expression. He stopped smiling. "Young Master Tang, what can I do for you?" In the office, Old Wei poured Tang Jing a cup of tea and asked in a deep voice. "Old Wei, I saw Professor Qi today and found that he was much more haggard. You are Professor Chi's close friend. I want to know if he encountered any difficulties. Tang Zheng asked directly. Old Wei's expression changed slightly when he heard this. You don't know his situation. What's the situation? Tang Zheng was confused. Old Wei looked at Tang Zheng with shining eyes. After confirming that he was not lying, he sighed and said, It's a long story. Actually, this matter is related to you. Related to me. Do you still remember the archaeology in the 100,000 Mountains last year? Tang Zheng nodded. Outsiders did not know the details of the archaeology because the officials had issued a gag order to the people involved. After that, Professor Chi talked about it with a lot of sighs. He even suspected that he was being monitored. Monitored. Tang Zheng shivered. He remembered the person outside Professor Chi's office. Could it be that Professor Chi was not being paranoid but was really being monitored? That person was monitoring Professor Chi. Tang Zheng was furious. The matter of the 100,000 Mountains had already passed, but the officials still sent people to monitor Professor Chi. This was too much. Although I don't know what exactly happened in the 100,000 Mountains, Old Chi mentioned a few things when he was drunk. His unfair treatment was the aftermath of that incident, and he mentioned a name called Lu Ming. I heard that this person has a lot of background, and he caused a lot of trouble. Old Wei said. Lu Ming, are you saying that Professor Chi was tricked by Lu Ming? Of course, Tang Zheng would not forget this clown. Lu Ming was the leader of the archaeological team, and because of various things, he had an intense conflict with Tang Zheng. In the end, because he led the military to encircle and annihilate the witch clan, both of his arms were crippled by Tang Zheng. However, in the end, he saved his dog life, but who would have thought that he would come out to stir up trouble again? I should have broken his neck instead of his arms. Tang Zheng gnashed his teeth in hatred. Old Wei nodded. Yes, Professor Chi's scientific research projects have all been cancelled. He has no funds, and he only has a few nominal titles in the Archaeology Association. Now, people in the archaeology world are keeping a respectful distance from him, afraid that they will be implicated if they get involved with him. Tang Zheng was shocked. Professor Chi was a titan in the archaeology world. In the past, many people wanted to know him, but now he had become a jinx. It could be said that he had fallen from heaven to hell. No wonder he was so haggard. Chapter 610. Tang Zheng finally understood why Professor Chi had hesitated for a moment before agreeing. With his current status, it would not be easy for him to help Tang Zheng. He knew it would be difficult, but he still agreed to help me. I, Tang Zheng, will never forget this kindness, he thought to himself. After understanding the whole story, Tang Zheng began to worry about Professor Chi. He had forced Professor Chi into a difficult situation. He had to withdraw this request to save Professor Chi a headache. He had just arrived at the university office when he saw two people arguing from afar. One of them was red-faced. Who else could it be but Professor Chi? The other was Yan Liang. Yan Liang was full of himself and did not take Professor Chi seriously at all. In the past, Yan Liang would never have dared to treat Professor Chi like this. He must have seen Professor Chi lose his power, so he was acting like this. Tang Zheng was furious. He strode over and happened to hear Yan Liang's sarcastic remarks. Do you really think you're the great Professor Chi of the past? You want to stand up for Tang Zheng? Look in the mirror. Yan Liang was secretly pleased. He would never have dared to treat Qi Shaoan like this in the past. This time, Qi Shaoan had taken the initiative to walk right into his mouth. Of course, he would not let go of this great opportunity to taunt him. Qi Shaoan was extremely embarrassed. He said bitterly, Yan Liang, so you're this kind of person. I was blinded by your pretense in the past. I'm fighting for Tang Zheng's rights. You're a real villain for retaliating. Haha, I'm a villain. But I'm living a good life, unlike you who's like a jinx. Everyone avoids you. You've gone too far. Qi Shaowen was shaking with anger. I'm going to talk to the dean. I don't believe there's no room for reason in this world. Yan Liang blocked the door with his body and said disdainfully, the dean is a busy man. He doesn't have time to deal with your trivial matters. Besides, I'll be honest with you. The dean asked me to stop you from coming. The dean doesn't want to see you at all. Qi Shaowen's aura faltered when he heard that. He had really become a jinx. His old acquaintances were all avoiding him. However, when he thought of Tang Zhang's trust in him, he was unwilling to leave just like that. He had promised Tang Zhang that he would do it. Yan Liang was enjoying Qi Shaowen's ugliness with satisfaction when he suddenly saw a figure dashing toward him. He thought that it was an impudent student and was about to reprimand him when he realized that it was a leg that was charging at him. Bang! With a muffled sound, this leg ruthlessly kicked his chest. Like a kite with a broken string, he flew out in a sorry state and crashed into the door. Like a dead pig, he softly fell to the ground. Qi Shaowen was shocked by the sudden attack. He was dumbfounded. It took him a while to realize that the attacker was Tang Jing, who was standing in front of him with a scowl on his face. Tang Jing. Why are you here? Qi Shaowen greeted him awkwardly. Tang Jing said bitterly, Professor Qi, why didn't you tell me about the unfair treatment you've been receiving? Why did you have to bear it all in silence? All of this happened because of me. It's my duty and responsibility to resolve it for you. Qi Shaowen said sheepishly, how did you know? Old man Wei told me everything. Besides, Yan Liang's behavior just now also explained everything. Professor Qi, why did you have to hide it from me? It's just a small matter. You have so many things to do every day. There's no need for me to add to your troubles. Tang Jing shook his head and held Professor Qi's shoulder. Professor Qi, as long as I, Tang Jing, am around, I will never allow these clowns to bully you. I'll teach him a lesson for you and avenge you. Tang Jing clenched his fists so tightly that they cracked. Yan Liang, who looked like a dead pig, immediately scrambled to his feet and said in horror, Don't, Tang Jing. Don't hit me again. Although he hated Tang Jing to the core, he did not dare to be presumptuous in front of Tang Jing. Even though he had just taken a kick from Tang Jing, he did not dare to show any hostility. This was because the memory of how Tang Jing had severely injured the president of the Martial Arts Association, Yu Zhankue, right in front of him had left a deep impression on him. Tang Jing would not listen to his pleas for mercy. He stepped closer and closer. Yan Liang retreated step by step until he finally reached the corner of the wall. There was nowhere else to go, but he still tried his best to move backward as if he wanted to melt into the wall. Seeing Tang Jing raise his fist, Yan Liang immediately squealed like a pig being slaughtered. It was as if he was about to meet the king of hell. Tang Jing, stop. Professor Qi could not wait to stop him. Don't hit him. Otherwise, people will talk about you. Besides, it's not worth it to dirty your hands over someone like him. Tang Jing was already facing the problem of being selected for a scholarship. If there was another incident of him violently beating up a teacher, he might even be expelled from the school, let alone a scholarship. Qi Shaowen would not watch Tang Jing ruin his bright future without doing anything. At the last moment, Tang Jing stopped. His fist hovered above Yan Liang's head. The wind that it created blew his hair into a mess. Even his mouth was crooked. Humph, you're lucky. Professor Qi is a magnanimous man. He won't stoop to the level of a clown like you. Tang Jing spat on the ground and said. Yan Liang hurriedly bowed to Qi Shaowen. His head was almost touching the ground. He said gratefully, Thank you, Professor Yan. You're a magnanimous man. Get lost. Tang Zheng said in disgust. Yan Liang immediately ran away, pissing his pants. He could not care less about the onlookers who were pointing and gossiping about him. This time, he was utterly humiliated. Professor Qi, let's go. These are all powerful people. Why should we beg them? Tang Zheng said as he helped Qi Shaowen up. Qi Shaowen sighed deeply and said, Tang Zheng, it's all because of me. I've caused you trouble again. Tang Zheng waved his hand and said, this started because of me. I'm the one who caused you trouble. Qi Shaowen shook his head helplessly and said, then what about your scholarship? Tang Zheng was not sure. However, he did not want Professor Qi to worry. He smiled freely and said, it's okay. It's just a scholarship. I don't need that money. Qi Shaowen sighed dejectedly and said, but it's an honor. Huh, Professor Qi, do you think someone like me would care about this honor? Tang Zheng retorted. Qi Shaowen was slightly stunned. He finally remembered Tang Zheng's identity and felt a little relieved. The two of them walked out of the campus together. Tang Zheng asked, Professor Qi, what is Lu Ming doing now? What right does he have to interfere with your work? He's young. Of course he doesn't have that kind of power. However, he has a powerful father. He's just a dog who bullies others. Qi Shaowen said disdainfully. He obviously looked down on Lu Ming as well. So he's relying on his father. I think he's cheating his father. Who's his father? Tang Zheng said angrily. A deputy minister in charge of archaeology. Hey, Tang Zheng, why are you asking these questions? Don't do anything stupid. Qi Shaowen warned him warily. He was gradually getting to know Tang Zheng's way of doing things. Sometimes, he just liked to use violence. For a scholar like Qi Shaowen, this kind of behavior was unacceptable. Tang Zheng smiled and said, of course I'm not going to do anything stupid. Doesn't he like to rely on his father? Then I'll let him know what it means to cheat his father. I don't need to use my fists to deal with him. Qi Shaowen was skeptical when he saw how confident he was. He was about to persuade him again when his phone rang. When he picked up the phone, his expression became strange. When he finally hung up the phone, he could not hide the astonishment on his face. What happened, Professor Qi? Who called? The principal of Yenqing University. The principal. Tang Zheng searched deep in his memory and recalled the hale and hearty figure at the freshman's opening ceremony. The principal of Yenqing University was a famous scholar and educator. He was very famous. The principal said that the university has a welcoming event for me. Tang Zheng was delighted. Since the principal had taken the initiative to contact him, it would definitely bring more benefits to Professor Qi. It would improve his status in the university. That's a good thing. Qi Shaowen was non-committal. He said, the headmaster said that the school will be welcoming a very important foreign guest. This foreign guest is very interested in the history and culture of the Huaxia Empire and antiques. The school is going to cater to his interests, so I'm part of the reception team. Which foreign guest is so important? Tang Zheng asked curiously. Yenqing University was the most prestigious university in Huaxia. It had always been an important target for all kinds of visitors. It had hosted many celebrities and politicians and was very experienced. Qi Shaowen shook his head. In order to ensure the safety of the foreign guest, the principal said that it's not appropriate to announce his identity to the public. He just asked me to report to the welcoming team as soon as possible. Then Professor Qi, you should go now. Tang Zheng, I'll warn you again. Don't do anything stupid. Otherwise, it'll be too late for regrets. Qi Shaowen said seriously. Tang Zheng waved his hand and told him not to worry. He strode out of the university. In the capital city, there was a low courtyard that was hidden in a low and old residential area. It was not very visible. When Tang Zheng stood in front of the gate of the courtyard, he felt very different from ordinary people. Although it was not visible to the naked eye, Tang Zheng could clearly feel that many pairs of eyes were locked on him in the dark. There were even sniper rifles aimed at him. But he was carefree and did not take them seriously at all. He swaggered toward the gate. "Hello, this is private property. We don't accept guests," the guard at the gate said in an old-fashioned manner. Tang Zheng smiled and went straight to the point. "I'm looking for Suing Tian." The guard shivered slightly, and his expression immediately raised a level of vigilance. He asked, "Who are you?" "I'm a special agent," Tang Zheng said calmly. This was a title that Suing Tian had promised him. It was a protective talisman for him. In the past, Suing Tian had invited him to visit the headquarters of the National Security Bureau many times. But he never had the time. This time, he just happened to be here. Since he had promised Suing Tian to join the National Security Bureau as a special agent, of course, he should do something occasionally. Chapter 6:11. Tang Zheng did not wait for too long at the door since the guard immediately reported when he heard the word special mobilization. It was just that a pair of eyes rolled around Tang Zheng's body. The special mobilization of the National Security Bureau wasn't something that an ordinary person could handle since it required the other party to be extremely powerful. But no matter how the guard looked at it, he did not feel that the young man before him possessed such strength. A short while later, Suing Tian walked out and laughed at Tang Zheng. "You're a rare guest." Tang Zheng bashfully smiled and said, "You have invited me so many times, so I should at least come and recognize you." "Yes, you're a special mobilization, and this is your home. So of course, you should come and visit." Hearing these words, the guard felt a chill in his heart. This young man was truly a special mobilization, and even the bureau chief was personally welcoming him. So this young man was definitely not an ordinary person. As Suing Tian led the way, Tang Zheng looked around and praised with a smile, "Your place is like an iron bastion." "I'm sorry." Suing Tian knew that he couldn't hide his arrangements from Tang Zheng, so he humbly replied. The short building in the courtyard was extremely old and emitted an aura of vicissitudes. The National Security Bureau was established in this courtyard in the past. Back then, this place was also considered luxurious, but it has lost its splendor and looks a little shabby. Suing Tian explained. Tang Zheng nodded his head. The National Security Bureau had a long history, and this ancient courtyard served as a foil to its background. It was not something that the Dragon Group could compare to. Suing Tian's office was located on the top floor, so there was no overlooking view. But when he stood at the window and looked out, he would see rows upon rows of tall buildings. You wouldn't visit a temple without a reason. You're not here to simply visit, right? Suing Tian smiled with his eyes narrowed. Tang Zheng shrugged and said, "I can't hide anything from you. But before we talk about this, I want to know what happened to the Emperor's younger brother that you captured." Even if you didn't tell me, I was going to tell you. Thanks to your help in the Northeast operation, we successfully captured this important person. You played a big part in it. When the higher-ups heard about this, they especially praised you." Tang Zheng shook his head. He didn't care about praise. Of course, he also understood that the leader who praised him must be someone at the top of Hua Xiao's hierarchy. If an ordinary person were to receive such an honor, they would definitely be incomparably excited, thinking that there was smoke rising from their ancestors' graves. However, Tang Zheng was so calm and collected that Suing Tian had a whole new level of respect for him. He felt that it was a wise decision to recruit him. The Emperor's younger brother is called Hirohito. The members of the royal family of the island nation don't have surnames, only names. Hirohito is the name of the captive. The other party is a ninja with a firm will. We are still interrogating him, so we are bound to obtain some useful information. However, the news of Hirohito's capture has already been sent back to the island nation. Presumably, the island nation will soon take action. Humph, if I knew that he would be so stubborn, I would have cut him off with a knife. Tang Jing didn't care about the identity of the other party and said with a murderous look. Suing Tian helplessly shook his head and patted Tang Jing's shoulder and advised, "Don't be impatient. We will always find a way to pry open his mouth." But since the news of his capture has already been sent back to the island nation, the other party will definitely do their best to obtain his freedom. Tang Jing said worriedly. "Don't worry, Hirohito has already been hidden by us in a secret base. It won't be easy for the island nation to rescue him. Moreover, the island nation won't dare to use diplomatic means to force the release of the captive because that will be a great humiliation. The captive of the royal family will also cause chaos in the island nation and make the people question the authority of the royal family. Oh, then it seems that we have a lot of time left." Tang Jing temporarily put him back into his stomach. Because, if Hirohito was released so easily, then Tang Jing definitely wouldn't be happy. "Tell me what you came here for," Suing Tian asked. "Help me investigate a person." Tang Jing immediately said the name of Lu Ming's father. Suing Tian's expression didn't change. He didn't feel the slightest bit of surprise or fear because he had to investigate a deputy minister with real power. Suing Tian looked at Tang Jing with burning eyes and asked, "Did he provoke you?" "His son Lu Ming and I have a grudge." Suing Tian understood and said after a while, "This deputy minister Lu is not an honest official. We have a lot of evidence on him, but the higher-ups don't want to touch him. Since Lu Ming has provoked you, then we can do something." Although this deputy minister had a high position, in Suing Tian's eyes, he didn't have much weight. His value couldn't be compared to Tang Jing's. Therefore, he didn't hesitate and directly stood on Tang Jing's side. He didn't even ask Lu Ming what happened between Tang Jing and Lu Ming. "Thank you." No need to be polite. You are a member of the National Security Bureau. Dealing with you is going against the National Security Bureau. Of course, I will support you. Suing Tian laughed heartily. This is only a small matter. Even if you didn't come looking for me, I would have gone looking for you. That's because I have a more important task for you. Suing Tian's smile vanished as he spoke in a serious tone. When Tang Jing first agreed to join the National Security Bureau, he understood that he would receive some tasks, so he didn't have any resistance. Moreover, Suing Tian so readily agreed to Lu Ming's matter. Politeness demands politeness. Of course, he wouldn't refuse Suing Tian's task. What task? A diplomatic security task. Tang Jing furrowed his eyebrows. This is a good task. The person you are protecting is a world-famous beauty. How many people want this task but don't have the chance? The more Tang Jing listened, the more confused he became. He really didn't know who he was supposed to protect. Actually, this protection task fell on your head for a reason. Moreover, you will only protect in secret, so there won't be too much exposure. You should be very consistent with your principles. Suing Tian continued. This beauty's visit to Huaxia has a stop at Yenqing University. Not only will she visit the campus, but she will also hold a public speech. There are many dangerous factors. In addition to the security personnel in the open, I am going to let you mix in with the students to protect in secret. Combining the light and the dark, this will ensure that nothing goes wrong. Who is the other party? Why are you mobilizing so many people? Tang Jing finally couldn't help but ask curiously. Her Royal Highness Princess Anne of the Swedish royal family. Ah, it's her. Tang Jing was shocked. This was an old acquaintance. He had too much contact with her in the South Sea. Moreover, he saved her life from the Sea King. Hey, You've heard of her too. I knew it. This princess N is very famous, especially in the Western countries. She is almost a household name. She is the dream lover of many men. Since you know her, you should know that this security task is indeed a good one. Tang Zhang's expression changed. He hesitated for a while and said, "Can I not accept this task?" He was not afraid that he would not be able to protect her, but he was worried that Princess N would recognize him. If that happened, it would be terrible. Too many things had happened in the South Sea. Princess N had always regarded him as a god. Tang Zhang did not take it seriously at all. After all, the two of them were people from two different worlds. But he never thought that such a coincidence would happen and the two of them would meet again. This time, he was in a dilemma. Suing Tian looked at him suspiciously and asked, "This is a good job, and there is not much danger. Why did you refuse this?" Tang Zhang was speechless. "This task, you have the right time, place, and people. Can you just treat it as helping me once?" Suing Tian persuaded. Since he had already said this much and Suing Tian did not hesitate in the slightest to agree to his request, if Tang Zhang were to refuse, then he really would not be loyal. "Well, I'll accept this task." Tang Zhang had no choice but to compromise. But he had made up his mind. He must avoid Princess N and not be discovered by her. This way, there would not be any trouble. 3 days later, Princess N's private plane will arrive in Beijing. After attending the corresponding official event, she will arrive at Yenqing University the next day for a series of interviews. So, there is not much time left for you to prepare, but I believe that you will be able to complete the task perfectly. Suing Tian was very confident in Tang Zhang. Tang Zhang bitterly smiled in his heart as he accepted the mission. 3 days passed quickly. During this period, the officials officially announced Princess N's visit to Huaxia. Suddenly, almost the entire world's media focused on Huaxia, the ancient country. Many people were speculating why Princess N would choose to visit Huaxia at this time. After all, ever since the kidnapping in the South China Sea, Princess N had been living in seclusion. The media rarely had any new news about her. This was her first official appearance on the international stage after the kidnapping incident. It had extraordinary significance. She chose Huaxia as the first stop of her visit. Many people would subconsciously speculate about the deeper meaning behind it. After all, Huaxia's rise in recent years was too dazzling. This time, N's visit increased Huaxia's exposure and invisibly raised Huaxia's international status. But no one would have thought of Huaxia. The reason why Princess N chose Huaxia was extremely simple. It had nothing to do with the so-called influence of the country. It was only related to one person. The mysterious immortal who saved her life in the South China Sea. And looked at the land gradually coming into view outside the porthole. A ripple appeared in her eyes. She muttered to herself, "The ancient country of Huaxia, the most mysterious country in the world. I must find you, the immortal." Bruce looked at Her Royal Highness worriedly. His 2 eyebrows were tightly knitted together. Since the kidnapping incident, Bruce could often hear Her Royal Highness whispering softly. Every time, it would be without fail that young immortal. Chapter 6:12. As the butler of the Swedish royal family, Brosnan had watched Princess N grow up and knew her very well. Looking at her expression, Brosnan knew that Princess N was in danger. He thought bitterly in his heart, that young immortal is really too hateful. He almost stole the soul of the princess. However, there was another person who didn't have any hostility towards that mysterious immortal. He sat beside Princess N and didn't move at all, just like a statue. This person was one of the people who had gone through hardships with Bezer on the island. He had already resigned from the United Nations peacekeeping force and was now Princess N's bodyguard. The special plane drew a beautiful arc and landed at Beijing International Airport. The official reception staff of Hua Xia, who had been waiting for a long time, immediately went up and held a simple welcome ceremony. The princess and her entourage were then escorted to the 5-star hotel where they were staying. Along the way, Princess Anne looked out of the car window with interest, admiring the beautiful ancient country of Hua Xia. In fact, she had a faint expectation in her heart. Would the immortal know that she had come? And that she had come especially for him? The immortal knows everything. He will definitely know that I have come. She said to herself silently, then will he come to see me? Her heart sank, and she was a little uncertain. All along, she had boasted that she could subdue anyone with her charm, especially men. But only when she faced the immortal did she realize that her charm was ineffective. She shook her head slightly, indicating that she shouldn't let her imagination run wild. Tang Zhang sneezed fiercely a few times. He thought to himself, who is thinking so much about me? He has already sneezed a few times. These few days, Yanqing University was almost boiling. Everyone was rushing to spread the news that Princess Anne would be visiting Yanqing University and would interact with the students present during her speech. Although Princess Anne was a foreign guest, she was extremely popular among the trendy students of Yanqing University. This was not only because of her identity as a member of the royal family, but also because of what she had done over the years. Although she had a prominent status, she had always been concerned about the hardships of the people at the bottom of society. She had donated to the poverty-stricken areas, and when there was a major outbreak of the plague 2 years ago, she had personally volunteered to serve the patients in the epidemic area. Such a princess would of course receive countless honors and support, and her reputation was well-deserved. Tang Zheng was silently praying that Princess Anne's trip to Yanqing University would be smooth. That way, he wouldn't have to show himself and wouldn't be discovered by the princess. However, the other 3 people in the dormitory seemed to have taken stimulants. Even Zhou Yan, who was usually the most stable, was abnormal. He was paying attention to the princess' movements at all times. Ever since it was reported that Her Royal Highness had successfully arrived in Hua Xia's capital yesterday, the 3 of them were so excited that they almost couldn't sleep. The 3 of them had already tried their best to get a few tickets to the lecture, preparing to see the charming appearance of Her Royal Highness when the time came. For this reason, the 3 of them were constantly trying on clothes, preparing to find the clothes that they were most satisfied with, so as to give the princess a good impression. In fact, maybe the princess wouldn't even notice them, but they still enjoyed it. Tang Zheng helplessly rolled his eyes. Was there a need to be so exaggerated? Especially Sinosaurus, you're a cultivator, can't you be a little more stable? Look at your excited face and neck, aren't you afraid that your girlfriend will be jealous? Tang Zheng faintly sighed, thinking that there was an insurmountable generation gap between him and his roommates on this matter. Lao San, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and change into a good set of clothes. When the time comes, if you have the chance to take a photo with Her Royal Highness, that would be a great fortune. Sinosaurus excitedly urged. My clothes are quite suitable. Tang Zheng lightly said. How can that be? You have to change into something more handsome. There's really no need. Aren't you in a hurry? If you delay any longer, it won't be good if you're late. Tang Zheng deliberately advised. The few of them looked at the time and shouted that it was almost too late. They had no choice but to let go of Tang Zheng and rush to the school auditorium as fast as lightning. Outside the auditorium, there was a sea of people, 3 inside and 3 outside were all students who heard the news. The police had already set up a cordon to guide the students into the auditorium. Wow, luckily Lao Sen reminded us. Otherwise, if we came a little later, it would be difficult to go in. Sinosaurus sighed with emotion. The others nodded in agreement, hurriedly lined up, and finally handed over their admission tickets. After passing through the security gate, they followed the crowd into the auditorium. Today, the security of the auditorium was clearly raised by several levels. The school's security could only be responsible for order in the periphery, while the core area was filled with real police. Not only that, Tang Jing also found a lot of plain clothes in the crowd. The smell of iron and blood on their bodies could not escape Tang Jing's senses. After sitting down in his seat, Tang Jing calmly looked around. This was the center of the auditorium, about 10 meters away from the stage. He could clearly see everything on the stage. Suddenly, the crowd at the entrance was in an uproar and burst into cheers. Wang Shiji immediately looked up and said with incomparable excitement, "His Royal Highness the Princess is here." Wow, I can finally see His Royal Highness the Princess's elegant demeanor. Shou Yan also said with excitement. "Hey, why are you here?" Suddenly, another person's voice called out in surprise not far away. It turned out to be the 4 people from Yi Dingdang's dormitory. Yi Dingdang was among them, looking at Tang Jing with burning eyes. "You actually came here behind our backs. Do you want to see His Royal Highness the Princess's beautiful face? Humph, you boys are all bad people. You actually came here quietly. If we didn't catch you red-handed, I'm afraid you wouldn't tell us about this." The sour ridicule made the boys embarrassed, especially Sinosaurus, who hurriedly said with a smile, "Misunderstanding, this is all a misunderstanding. We only came here to join in on the fun. We didn't plan to hide anything from you." The girls coldly snorted, clearly not believing this nonsense. At this time, a dazzling figure walked into the auditorium, attracting everyone's attention. The girls' attention was also completely attracted, so they had no time to teach the boys a lesson. Princess Anne, the real person, is even more beautiful than the photo, and has more temperament. Wow, is this the style of the royal family? It's too special, too cool. The crowd immediately exploded like a pot, discussing spiritedly. And always had a faint smile on her face, like a warm spring breeze, making people feel relaxed and happy, as if they were about to get lost in this smile. It could be said that out of the thousands of people present, only Tang Jing's state of mind was the calmest. He only glanced in the direction of Princess Anne, and then saw a few familiar faces. Other than the princess, Baser and Bruce are also here. Tang Jing thought in surprise. Since that's the case, then I should secretly hide so that they won't find any clues. Oh well, third, are you stunned? Isn't His Royal Highness the Princess very beautiful? It's simply shocking. Sinosaurus urged. Tang Jing shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I'm not looking at her face." Back then, Tang Jing had been with Princess Anne for a few days and had long since memorized her image in his mind, so how could he be surprised? What are you looking at if not her appearance? Oh well, 3, why are you so strange today? Shou Yan could not help but ask curiously. Tang Jing smiled embarrassedly and said, "Don't worry about me, hurry up and admire His Royal Highness the Princess." The others nodded happily. Only Yi Dingdang walked over with a complicated expression and said, "Why didn't you tell me about this?" Tang Jing spread out his hands and said, "Don't listen to their nonsense. I came here for a serious matter." "What serious matter?" Yi Dingdang asked suspiciously. Tang Jing smiled, but still kept it a secret. He had no choice but to say perfunctorily, "You'll know when the time comes." Yi Dingdang bit her lips and gave up on continuing to ask. She looked at Princess Anne from afar and said, "The various great families also have a very high opinion of Princess Anne. Although she is not from Huaxia, she has many fans in the upper class. Oh, it seems that she is indeed very popular." Tang Jing looked at the increasingly beautiful and delicate face from afar and sighed. Yi Dingdang nodded in agreement. The commotion in the crowd gradually subsided. Everyone just looked at Her Royal Highness from afar and up close. Her Royal Highness took her seat in the center of the stage. Bruce and Baser stood respectfully at the side. Baser kept his eyes and ears open, constantly paying attention to the movements in all directions to ensure Her Royal Highness's safety. The school leaders and relevant personnel had already taken their seats. Tang Jing saw Qi Shaowen's figure in the crowd. So the foreign guest that the school asked him to receive was Princess Anne. If Professor Qi shines in the reception this time, he will definitely be able to get out of his current predicament. Tang Jing suddenly realized. However, Tang Jing could not interfere in this kind of thing. He could only silently pray that everything would go smoothly. Later on during the visit, if Qi Shaowen's explanation could enlighten Princess Anne, then it would be a great achievement. The school leader went on stage to give a speech, briefly introducing Princess Anne's life and giving her high recognition and praise. The students listened attentively. Many of them were impressed by Princess Anne's deeds. Their gazes towards her became more and more passionate and full of admiration. Tang Jing was not in the mood to listen to the long speech. His attention was focused on the crowd and the surrounding environment. Fortunately, he had not found any signs of danger so far. Next, let's welcome Her Royal Highness, Princess Anne, to give a speech. The school leader's long speech finally came to an end and announced with a sonorous voice. Immediately, the crowd gathered their attention. Many people who were hunched over immediately puffed out their chests and watched Her Royal Highness walk to the center of the stage in high spirits. Her speech was not in English. Instead, it was in Hua-Xia language. Her pronunciation was perfect, and many people were stunned. Her Hua-Xia language was amazing. It was amazing. Princess Anne's speech was neither long nor short. It mainly explained her own journey, some of her experiences in poor countries, and the meaning of charity. Finally, she urged everyone to maintain a kind heart in their hearts at all times and be willing to help others. Only such a life could be described as wonderful and even perfect. When she finished her last sentence, the crowd immediately erupted into loud cheers. It was as if the roof was about to be lifted off. Suddenly, Tang Jing's expression changed drastically. His hair stood on end. He felt as if he had been electrocuted and his whole body trembled. Chapter 613. This sharp sound was the whistling sound of the bullet rubbing against the air. Assassination. These two words immediately appeared in Tang Jing's mind. The others did not notice at all. Even the police in plainclothes were calm, unaware that danger was approaching. At the critical moment, it was too late to remind them. Tang Jing directly bounced up from his seat, like a rock spreading its wings, sweeping over the heads of the crowd and pouncing on Princess Anne on the stage. Suddenly, he replaced Princess Anne as the focus of the crowd. Especially the nerves of the police were immediately triggered and they all pulled out their guns. However, Tang Jing's speed was much faster than theirs. He left an afterimage in the air and landed in front of Princess Anne. Baiser had been standing near Princess Anne. His reaction was extremely fast and he directly punched the uninvited guest. Bang! Tang Jing did not have time to resist and took the punch. However, he did not retreat an inch and completely blocked his body in front of Princess Anne. Swish! The sword flew and a black light seemed to split open space. Ding-dang screamed and sparks flew. The bullet hit War Soul and lost its offensive power. The scene of the bullet hitting War Soul immediately fell into the eyes of many people. Baiser was one of them. He immediately realized that a gunman was shooting at the princess and shouted, "Assassin!" Then, he also used his body like a wall in front of the princess, cutting off the chance for the gunman to continue shooting. Baiser suddenly turned his head and looked at Tang Jing. His violent punch did not have the slightest reaction. It was as if he had hit a ball of cotton. It was inconceivable to him. In addition, he also understood that the other party was not an enemy, but a helper. He must be a security guard arranged by Hua-Xia. Because, if the other party really wanted to assassinate the princess, the sword just now could have directly killed the princess on the spot. But when he saw the appearance of the uninvited guest, he was immediately shocked. His mouth was wide open as if a duck egg could be stuffed in. "How could it be you?" he blurted out. Wasn't this the immortal that Her Royal Highness could not forget? Bezer had experienced many big scenes in this half of his life. He was an expert who had walked through a rain of bullets. But that time in the South Sea, he truly experienced what a true powerhouse was. The impression that young man gave him was too deep, and it would linger for the rest of his life. Sometimes, he even wondered if the other party was really human. Could it really be the legendary immortal? Otherwise, how could he have such heaven-defying abilities? But he never thought that he would meet this immortal again, and under such circumstances. It was really amazing. Tang Jing smiled bitterly. In the end, he had been recognized. He nodded to Bezer and said, "Protect the princess." Then, he stepped aside and slightly opened up the distance between him and the princess. His eyes were like a scanner as he searched through the crowd. At this time, the police rushed over and pointed their black muzzles at Tang Jing, as if they would pull the trigger at any time. The students seemed to have woken up from a dream as they screamed. Assassination. Someone actually tried to assassinate the princess. Schwa. The school leaders' faces and vests were immediately covered in cold sweat. Their faces were extremely pale. One must know that for this speech, they had prepared for a long time. They strictly controlled the people who entered the auditorium and conducted background checks on the ticket holders. If there was anything suspicious, they would definitely not let them enter. But even so, this kind of thing still happened. The school could not absolve themselves of the blame. If Princess Anne was assassinated at Yenqing University, it would be an extremely bad diplomatic incident. Not only would the school leaders be in big trouble, but many people in the government would also be implicated and lose their jobs. "Put down your weapons and raise your hands," the police shouted at Tang Jing. They were all furious and filled with killing intent. Tang Jing's image at this moment was really too much like an assassin. He held a long sword and was filled with killing intent. If it was a stranger, they would also think that he was a huge threat. Yan Liang and Qin Hao thought so too. After the two of them were suddenly stunned, they looked at each other and saw the ecstasy in each other's eyes. Tang Jing's reckless actions meant that they did not need to do anything. He would be in serious trouble. Forget about the scholarship, he might not even be able to keep his life. But the people in dorm 502 and Yidingdang did not think so. They were really shocked by Tang Jing's actions. What was going on? Seeing so many guns pointed at Tang Jing, Yidingdang felt like a knife was being twisted in her heart. She immediately stood up and tried to get close to Tang Jing to help him. But Tang Jing's movements were faster than her. He jumped from the stage and rushed towards one of the people in the crowd. "Don't shoot!" Bezer shouted at the police who were ready to make a move. "Don't hurt him." In fact, he felt that his warning was unnecessary. Although the police had the advantage in numbers, they might not be able to hurt him. The police were suddenly stunned. They looked at each other and did not know what to do. Wasn't this person an assassin? Why didn't the princess's guards allow everyone to hurt him? The police were confused. Tang Jing was not confused at all because he finally locked onto the assassin. The other party had a young face. His expression was no different from the others. But Tang Jing still locked onto the other party with a glance. He directly rushed towards the other party and without hesitation, where Soul greeted the other party's head. The assassin finally moved. A pistol with a silencer was aimed at Tang Jing. He quickly pulled the trigger. Bullets whistled out of the barrel and shot towards Tang Jing's chest. Tang Jing's body was in midair, but he did not retreat. War Soul was held horizontally in front of his chest. The blade flashed with a black light and directly split the bullets into two. Fast, ruthless, accurate. All of these were vividly displayed. Seeing that his attack did not succeed, the assassin fled towards the door. Want to escape? No way. Whoosh! Tang Zheng chased after him as fast as lightning. Just as he was about to reach the other party's back, suddenly, without any warning, two long swords attacked Tang Zheng from both sides. All of this happened too suddenly. No one expected it, not even Tang Zheng. But he had been through hundreds of battles. His body coordination and sharpness could be said to be perfect. He slightly leaned to the side, allowing the long sword on the left to slide past his chest without hurting him at all. On the other side, his war soul was already ready to attack. It exploded with a bright light. The sword slashed at the other party's long sword. The sword did not dissipate. It drove straight through and directly pierced the other party's chest. Blood splattered. The other party did not even have time to scream before he became a corpse. Ah! Murder! The crowd immediately burst into deafening screams. The crowd rushed towards the door like a tide, blocking the gunman. Tang Zheng quickly pulled back the war soul sword, and then looked at the assassin on the other side. This assassin was not very old, like the gunman. The three assassins all had Asian faces, and it was impossible to tell which country they were from. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a fierce light. He roared, "Get down!" Battle Soul ferociously attacked, one sword strike breaking through 10,000 caddies. The air seemed to have solidified as the powerful sword force surged towards the assassin. The assassin's expression changed as he tried to escape, but how could Tang Zheng allow him to succeed? The war soul sword had completely locked onto the opponent in all directions, so no matter how he tried to escape, he would not be able to escape from the war soul sword's attack. With a sword cry, the assassin's escape came to an abrupt stop. War soul had pierced through the other party's shoulder. However, war soul's momentum did not decrease. It actually nailed his body to the floor. The hilt of the sword was still trembling. The other party lay on the ground, gasping for breath. "Catch him!" Tang Zheng shouted at the stunned police officer and rushed towards the door. There was a sea of people at the door. It was filled with countless students. The staff outside kept shouting for them to stop, but the students were so frightened that they simply ignored them. The crowd blocked the way, and the gunman had already disappeared into the crowd. "No, we have to catch him." The other party was a huge threat. Moreover, such a terrible thing had happened. If they could not catch him in one fell swoop, then the great country of Huaxia would lose too much face. Moreover, if they did not catch him, they would not be able to give Princess Anne a satisfactory explanation. Tang Zheng glanced at the door, took a deep breath, and flew towards the top of the crowd. He stepped on the wall and flew out of the auditorium. There was also a sea of people outside the auditorium. Among them were students who had just escaped. There were also people who heard the news and came to watch. It was so densely packed. Where could he find the gunman? Tang Zheng suddenly swept his gaze. The sea of people was so vast that it was not easy to find him. But this did not stop him. He stood condescendingly on the head of the large stone lion at the entrance of the auditorium. He looked into the distance and took in the entire crowd. He had undoubtedly become the focus of the crowd. They all looked at him with surprise, suspicion, or curiosity. Many people pointed at him, especially the students who had just escaped. They had complicated expressions and whispered in each other's ears about what had happened in the auditorium. Suddenly, the news of Princess Anne's assassination spread like wildfire. Especially when there were many news media gathered outside the auditorium, adding fuel to the fire. Many people wanted to find out what had happened in the auditorium. Who was this man standing on the stone lion's head? Click, click, click. The cameras of the media workers were all aimed at Tang Zheng. They pressed the shutter to capture this moment. At this moment, Tang Jing did not have time to care about his identity being exposed. He finally found the whereabouts of the gunman in the crowd. This person retreated from the crowd without leaving a trace like a loach. However, he still did not escape Tang Jing's sharp eyes. "Stop!" Tang Jing roared and chased after him. The gunman saw that he had been discovered. He did not turn his head. He pointed his gun at the sky and pulled the trigger. The sound of the gunshot caused chaos. Screams rose one after another. The crowd directly blocked Tang Jing and the gunman. How cunning! Tang Jing jumped and used his classmate's shoulder as a stepping stone. He flew in the air and chased after the gunman. Chapter 6:14. Graceful as a swan. These 4 words seemed to be tailor-made for Tang Jing at this moment. He flew over the shoulders of the students and headed straight for his target. He leaped like a rabbit and landed like a falcon, blocking the gunman's path. The gunman turned pale with fright and hurriedly aimed his gun at Tang Jing, trying to shoot. But Tang Jing's speed was faster than his finger could pull the trigger. Swoosh! The sword flashed, and without the slightest sound, the gunman's arm was separated from his body. Ah! Seeing the severed arm fall to the ground and blood splatter, the gunman screamed at the top of his lungs. Tang Jing did not have the slightest bit of pity. He punched the gunman's temple, causing him to faint, and then dragged him like a dead dog to the auditorium. Along the way, the surrounding crowd retreated and made way for him. Everyone looked at him in shock and fear, pointing at him and whispering among themselves. "Brother Kung Fu, he's Brother Kung Fu." A surprised voice sounded. Clearly, someone had an amazing memory and remembered this Brother Kung Fu who was in the limelight back then. Immediately, many people's memories were evoked, and they also recognized Tang Jing. Back then, many people had seen Tang Jing's performance in the martial arts circle convention. It was also bloody and profiteering. Now, it seemed that after a few months, his style had not changed. It was just that this time, he had changed from the competition to the campus. At this time, the police also surrounded them, looking at Tang Jing with complicated expressions. They had already determined that Tang Jing was not here, but one of their own. Just now, the National Security Bureau had already informed the police that Tang Jing was one of their people, and he was responsible for secretly protecting the princess. Most of the students in the auditorium also rushed out, and Yi Dingdang was one of them. Like a moth, she threw herself into Tang Jing's arms. A beautiful woman and a handsome man, especially eye-catching. It was enough to make a big splash. The sound of the camera shutters did not stop. Yi Dingdang raised her head, not at all afraid of these cameras, as if to declare her sovereignty. Instead, she showed a sweet face to the camera. "You really scared me to death this time. You were too reckless," Yi Dingdang said with 30% complaint and 70% pride. Tang Jing smiled faintly and patted her back, comforting her. "I'm fine. How can these shrimp soldiers and crab generals hurt me?" Yi Dingdang smiled sweetly. She was also confused because of her concern. Thinking back, with Tang Jing's current cultivation, ordinary people really couldn't hurt him. Suddenly, the crowd quieted down, and all the cameras turned to face the entrance of the auditorium. Princess Anne walked out leisurely. Barzil and Bruce stood by her side like her protectors. From front to back, it was as if a small hill was packed with police officers. It was an airtight protection. The police and the school were really racking their brains. They had strictly guarded against it, but this kind of vile assassination still happened. Fortunately, the princess was not seriously injured. However, Her Royal Highness was obviously not a person who would stay still. She had just encountered an assassination attempt, but was not afraid at all. Instead, she couldn't wait to walk out. This scared the others. They couldn't wait for Princess Anne to leave through the back door, to guard against a possible second assassination attempt. but who could stop the princess's actions? They could only watch as she walked out of the auditorium under everyone's watchful eyes. In public, she was a live target. If there was another assassination attempt, it would be even worse. Therefore, these people were all on high alert, guarding against any attacks to the death. Princess Anne did not have the slightest expression of fear. Instead, she looked excited, and her emotions surged. Many people had an illusion in their hearts. At this moment, Her Royal Highness was like a little girl in love. It was as if she had seen the person she liked. Didn't her crimson cheeks explain everything? Many people were suspicious. What was wrong with Her Royal Highness? Her Royal Highness led a large group of people and went straight to Tang Zheng. After seeing the two people hugging each other, she was slightly stunned. However, there was no hesitation in her feet. Instead, the excitement in her eyes became even stronger. There's a show. This thought immediately came to everyone's minds. All the cameras were directly aimed at Her Royal Highness, and the sound of shutters kept clicking. This scene was definitely never seen before. No one had ever seen such an expression on Her Royal Highness' face. There must be a story. Everyone immediately had a feeling of anticipation in their hearts. Princess Anne stared at the figure in a daze. That familiar face. This person had appeared many times in her dreams. However, this figure had always given her a very distant feeling. She could not touch it, let alone grasp it. However, at this moment, he actually appeared in front of her. It was so real, even more real than when they were in the South China Sea. Brosnan looked at the princess, then looked at Tang Zheng. He suddenly had a headache. His worries had come true. He was a little regretful. Why did he agree to Her Royal Highness' visit to China? He should have advised the king and queen. Perhaps he had thought that in this vast sea of people, there would not be such a coincidence to meet this person. Moreover, this person was like a god. He should not have appeared in such a bustling school in such a big city. It was said that the gods in Hua Xiao liked to live a hermit's life. Why would a god come to such a big city? Brosnan felt like crying but had no tears. However, he could only look at Her Royal Highness and hope that she would not do anything extreme. Her Royal Highness was already standing in front of Tang Zheng. Her Royal Highness, who had been talking and laughing, had changed. It was as if she had turned into a little girl. She was somewhat at a loss and looked at Tang Zheng nervously. Ha! This is too strange. Did the sun rise from the west? Everyone looked at each other. They did not know what was going on. Tang Zheng could only smile bitterly. His wish had come to nothing. It was all these damned assassins' fault. If they wanted to assassinate someone, they should not have chosen this time to get him involved. Yi Dingdang looked at the two of them suspiciously. With a girl's sixth sense, she immediately sensed that there was something fishy going on between the two of them. However, the key point was that one was a foreign princess and the other was a student. The difference between the two of them was like heaven and earth. How could they have crossed paths? Princess Anne looked at Tang Zheng with shining eyes. Suddenly, she smiled. In an instant, it was as if the world had been robbed of its color by this smile. Only her smile was left. In the hearts of many people, only this smile was left. This smile was fixed in the minds of many people and became the most beautiful memory of their lives. What was a smile that could topple a city? This was it. As a woman, Yi Dingdang could not help but admit that the other party was very beautiful. Moreover, this kind of beauty was aristocratic, elegant, and unattainable. Many people would admit that Anne was very beautiful, but they would not have any improper thoughts because they understood the difference between them. Tang Zheng was immune to Princess Anne. Perhaps it was because the two of them had been together for too long, or perhaps it was because he had seen the sorry state of Princess Anne after she had been captured. In short, he calmly looked at Princess Anne. This calmness was particularly deep and unfathomable. It was completely different from others. Princess Anne's eyes lit up and her heart began to beat rapidly. Ever since she was young, other people would be very cautious when facing Princess Anne. Especially after she became an adult, no matter how gentlemanly a man was, they would all be courteous to her, giving people the feeling that they were deliberately trying to curry favor with her. However, only Tang Jing was the most special. When he faced her, he did not have any messy thoughts. He did not have any thoughts of class. Instead, he treated her as an equal. This was a feeling that Princess Anne had never experienced before. It was especially attractive. Just like at this moment, he was the most special person in the crowd. I'm so happy to see you again. I can't describe how I feel right now. Princess Anne took the initiative to speak. Her voice was not loud, but it was accurately transmitted to many people's ears. The other students immediately looked at each other in disbelief. Many people's hearts were filled with disbelief. Damn, did they hear it wrong? Brother Kung Fu actually knew Princess Anne, and it seemed that their relationship was not shallow. Princess Anne's girlish appearance clearly meant that there was a lot going on between the two of them. However, the school had another thought. The assassination happened in Yenqing University, so the school could not absolve themselves from the blame. The school leaders were distressed over this matter. Many people's hearts were bleeding, thinking that they would not be able to keep their positions. However, at this moment, a mysterious person appeared, and according to the introduction, this person was a student of the school. This brother Kung Fu not only saved the princess, but was also an old acquaintance of hers. This is too good. A turnaround. This was definitely a huge turnaround. Many people realized this point. They originally thought that they were standing on the edge of a cliff, but now they realized that there was still a chance for survival. Many people's eyes immediately became fiery when they looked at Tang Jing. Yan Liang and Qin Hao were mixed in the crowd. They also heard the princess's words. Just now, they thought that Tang Jing was going to be in big trouble, or even lose his life. Now it seemed that it was all wishful thinking on their part. Especially when he saw the school leader's expressions, Yan Liang immediately realized that his little tricks were simply laughable. With a relationship with the princess, no matter what kind of scholarship it would be easy for him to get it. He deliberately made things difficult for him, he was simply seeking his own death. In an instant, Yan Liang's face was ashen, his legs were weak, and he sat on the ground. Tang Jing nodded at Princess Anne and said against his will, I'm also very happy to see you. She was a princess, and in front of so many people, he had to give her some face. He could not just say that he did not want to see her. He was afraid that if he did that, he would be torn apart by the crowd. When the princess heard this, she beamed with joy and said, I chose to come to Huaxia because I wanted to see you, and I have a feeling that I will definitely see you. My intuition did not lie to me. I just arrived yesterday, and I already see you today. Moreover, you saved me again. This is like a special arrangement by God. Every time I am in danger, you will appear from the sky. There is an old saying in Huaxia, a hero saves a beauty. You are my hero, don't you think so? The princess is hero. Wow! Chapter 6:15. Tang Jing was rendered speechless by the princess' words. Especially when he noticed the crazed expressions on everyone's faces, he wished he could immediately disappear from everyone's line of sight. Yi Dingdong's eyes turned as she stared at Princess Anne with caution and asked, How do you know each other? Princess Anne finally turned her attention to Yi Dingdang. Even as a beauty, she had to admit that Yi Dingdang was a great beauty with a unique charm. This is a secret between us. Princess Anne winked and said with a bit of playfulness. Yi Dingdong's eyes immediately widened. There was actually a secret. This was a blatant provocation. Yi Dingdang wasn't a normal girl. Facing the princess, she wouldn't retreat half a step. Instead, she held Tang Zheng's arm even tighter, afraid that he would fly away if she let go. "Hang, even if you didn't say it, Tang Zheng would tell me," Yi Dingdang said with a snort. Princess Anne's eyes lit up as she said in pleasant surprise, "So you really are called Tang Zheng." At first, after she was rescued, she wondered if this was a fake name. She didn't expect that the other party didn't lie to her and told her his real name. Tang Zheng speechlessly rolled his eyes. When he first met her, he didn't think that she would be a princess. Otherwise, he would have definitely used a fake name to fool her. "Tang Zheng, this time my biggest gain from coming to Huaxia is to see you again. Now that I've caught you, you can't run away," Princess Anne said excitedly as she subconsciously reached out to grab Tang Zheng's hand. Shwa! Everyone's eyes were like spotlights as they immediately focused on Tang Zheng. Many people were indignant. What did this brat do to deserve the princess' favor? Moreover, he actually held her hand. Skin to skin. This was something that many people didn't even dare to dream of, but this brat did it so easily, and he didn't feel flattered at all. Tang Zheng's expression was calm, but his heart couldn't help but tremble. Princess Anne's skin was extremely good, smooth and tender to the touch. He smiled bitterly and said, "Of course I won't run. Your Highness, it's not safe here. Let's leave first." He had already noticed that the other's eyes were about to spit fire, so he felt that it was better not to provoke them. Princess Anne smiled sweetly and said, "Just call me Anne. Princess sounds so distant. As for safety, with you around, I am the safest. No matter who the enemy is, you can protect me." These words gave him a sense of accomplishment. However, the others were about to go crazy. Why was the princess so dead set on this brat? Immediately, all the school leaders looked at Tang Zheng with burning gazes, deeply imprinting Tang Zheng's face in their minds. If they missed out on this kind of student, then it would be a huge waste. The principal saw the opportunity and immediately stood up and praised, "Your Highness, student Tang Zheng is our Yenqing University's outstanding student. This is recognized by everyone. With him here, he can protect your Highness." The principal had already seen Tang Zheng's strength, so his words were not exaggerated. However, Tang Zheng couldn't help but roll his eyes. When did he become recognized by everyone as an outstanding student? He almost couldn't get a scholarship. Princess Anne was even more happy when she heard this. She firmly said, "I already knew that he was a dragon among men. For your Yenqing University to have such a student, it is your great honor." Princess Anne was serious, but her words stunned everyone. "Damn, are you kidding me? Yenqing University is a famous school with 100 years of history. How famous is that? How can they say that it is their honor to have a student like Tang Zheng? Is the order reversed?" However, the other party was Princess Anne. Her words carried enormous weight, so no one dared to refute her. The school leaders bitterly smiled in their hearts and nodded, "Your Highness' words are like gold and jade. You are right. Is this official recognition?" Many people felt dizzy. However, Princess Anne thought that this was a matter of course. After all, Tang Zheng was a legendary immortal. Of course the secular school would be proud of him. Princess Anne didn't need to waste her brain cells to understand this simple logic. When Bruce saw this, he couldn't help but interrupt. He was really worried that Princess Anne would do something extreme. If that happened, it would make things worse. "Your Highness, let's leave first." The princess purposely shook her head and said, "Why leave? Don't we have follow-up activities planned? After such a thing happened, we should leave temporarily to avoid other dangers," Bruce earnestly advised. Princess Anne made up her mind and said, "As long as he is here, no one can hurt me." TSK. Many people felt sour in their hearts. This trust was really unparalleled. How could this kid be so lucky? Bruce still wanted to persuade her, but Princess Anne didn't give him the chance. She directly asked the principal, "I hope that he can accompany me for the following activities. Is that okay?" Of course, the principal wouldn't foolishly refuse. He hurriedly nodded and said, "Of course." Princess Anne smiled and said, "Then I will have to trouble you, my knight." Knight. When these two words came out, many people immediately remembered that Princess Anne was saved by a mysterious knight after the kidnapping incident. Could it be that the mysterious knight was this kung fu bro in front of them? Everyone immediately remembered what the princess said just now. This was the second time he saved her. This meant that he had saved her once before. Wasn't it that kidnapping incident? Wow! The crowd was in an uproar. This discovery was too shocking. One had to know that there were too many speculations about this mysterious knight internationally. Especially the media of various countries, which had offered a huge reward for clues about the mysterious knight, but in the end, it was all to no avail. No one would have thought that the mysterious knight was actually from Huaxia. Moreover, he was a university student. This was inconceivable. All the media personnel were excited. This was the right time to come. They actually obtained such a big piece of news. Tang Jing didn't understand what these two words meant. This was because he didn't pay much attention to Princess Anne. He also didn't know about the mysterious knight. "Student Tang Jing, the princess's safety is in your hands," the principal said seriously. Tang Jing couldn't refuse. He bitterly nodded and said, "Okay." Princess Anne's next itinerary was to visit Yenqing University's School History Museum. Yenqing University had a long history. The school's School History Museum was equivalent to the modern history of Huaxia. It was very interesting. Of course, the school's School History Museum was not inferior. It was a symbol of the school's accumulation. The collection was richer than many provincial museums. This was also the reason why they needed Qi Shaowen. When it came to antiques, no one was more knowledgeable and experienced than him. The group marched towards their destination. Not only were there more security guards, but there were also more onlookers. It was very lively. As for the assassins, they had already been taken away by the police. They had already begun the intensive interrogation. They were determined to give the princess an explanation. Along the way, the princess and Tang Jing walked side by side. Although they were no longer holding hands, even a blind person could see that they were very close. Yi Dingdang was forced to be pushed to the side. Everyone wanted to be closer to the princess. Of course, these advantageous positions were occupied by the government officials. Princess Annie and Tang Jing had undoubtedly become the focus of the crowd, especially Tang Jing, whose limelight had even faintly overshadowed the princess. This was because everyone was simply too curious about him, and couldn't wait to scan him thoroughly like a scanner. Princess Anne wore a faint smile on her face. She was absent-minded as she listened to the principal's introduction of the school. Most of her attention was on Tang Jing. She was surprised to find that in real life, he was not as decisive as he was in the South China Sea. Instead, he was quiet, just like the other students. The more Tang Jing behaved like this, the more mysterious and unpredictable she found him to be. After a cursory tour of the school's School History Museum, the group went to the museum. The museum's collection was dazzling and full of historical charm. The principal introduced with a smile, "Our school's museum has a rich collection. Qi Shaowen will do the introduction." Qi Shaowen took a step forward and nodded slightly at Princess Anne. Tang Jing interjected, "Professor Qi is a leading figure in the field of archaeology in Huaxia. He is also my most respected teacher." Princess Anne's eyes lit up. The polite smile on her face immediately turned into a warm one. She said enthusiastically, "Professor Qi, we'll have to trouble you from now on." Her attitude was obviously much better than that of the school's leaders. Of course, this was all thanks to Tang Zheng. A single sentence from him could make Princess Anne change so much. Once again, everyone had a deep understanding of Tang Zheng's position in Princess Anne's heart. Professor Qi looked at Tang Zheng gratefully. After this incident, the school would definitely treat Professor Qi better. Professor Qi immediately went into work mode and led the group to explore the various collections. Professor Qi was very knowledgeable. Not only did he know each collection like the back of his hand, he was also very familiar with the history behind the collection. The tour was not boring at all. Instead, everyone was subconsciously immersed in Professor Qi's explanation. The principal was deep in thought. He had already made a decision. After this incident, he would immediately resume Professor Qi's work. Although there were people from the top who were deliberately making things difficult for Professor Qi, after the principal discovered the close relationship between Professor Qi and Tang Zheng, he had to reconsider Professor Qi's importance. This was because if Tang Zheng spoke ill of Yanqing University in front of the princess, he would be in serious trouble. Moreover, her school had such a powerful person like Tang Zheng, so if she didn't do her best to win him over and instead pushed him to the opposite side, only a fool would do such a thing. After the tour, the principal politely invited Princess Anne to a specially prepared dinner. Unexpectedly, Princess Anne rolled her eyes and looked at Tang Zheng thoughtfully. She said, "Mr. Principal, I won't be able to attend the dinner because Tang Zheng and I have a lot of things to do." Immediately, everyone looked at Tang Zheng with mixed feelings. What did this kid do? He was like a concubine in ancient times who was loved by all. Chapter 6:16. Since the princess had spoken, no one dared to disobey. They quietly left the campus, even refusing the police protection. However, before leaving, the principal repeatedly reminded Tang Zheng to protect the princess and not let anything happen to her. Of course, they couldn't go hungry during dinner time, and they couldn't just eat at a roadside stall. As the host, Tang Zheng had to find a restaurant. Of course, a normal restaurant wasn't suitable for the princess. Tang Zheng thought for a moment, and found a good place to go. Li Hongqing's private restaurant. Fortunately, he had Li Hongqing's contact information. He simply said that he wanted to treat a friend to dinner, and Li Hongqing promised to prepare immediately. They took a low-key car and drove out of the campus. Baser was driving, and Bruce was sitting in the passenger seat, looking at the rearview mirror from time to time. He was going to refute the princess's suggestion, but seeing the stubbornness in the princess's eyes, he knew that his suggestion wouldn't work this time, so he had to give up. In the rearview mirror, Tang Zheng was sitting in the middle, and Princess Anne and Yi Dingdang were on his left and right. Princess Anne was very well-mannered and wouldn't do something rash like chasing Yi Dingdang away. However, she focused all her attention and willpower on Tang Zheng, and rarely paid any attention to Yi Dingdang. Princess Anne kept talking to Tang Zheng, telling him all kinds of things after the kidnapping incident, and curiously asking about Tang Zheng, like a curious baby. Yi Dingdang bit her lips, feeling like a fly was buzzing in her ears, but she couldn't do anything. However, she was particularly interested in the kidnapping incident, because she had never heard Tang Zheng mention it before, so she pricked up her ears, afraid that she would miss out on any important information. Outside the private restaurant, Li Hongqing was personally waiting at the entrance, which made the guests and waiters click their tongues in wonder. They were guessing who was so important to her. The car stopped steadily at the entrance. Bruce quickly got out of the car and opened the door for Princess Annie. Princess Annie smiled faintly and walked out. Schwa! Everyone's eyes immediately focused on her. They thought that this foreign girl was so beautiful. Her figure, face, and temperament were all impeccable. Li Hongqing had seen countless people, but when she saw Princess Anne, she was also startled. She looked at her in shock and wondered who this person was. Who brought the guests here? He had never seen it before. Princess Anne was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, she politely waited for Tang Jing to get out of the car. When she got out of the car, she naturally held onto his arm like a socialite attending a banquet. She stood tall like a proud swan. Sitting in the car, Yi Dingdang gritted her teeth as she watched this scene. She roared in her heart, "Tang Jing is my boyfriend. I should be holding on to him. When is it your turn?" However, she knew that making a scene at this time would only make Tang Jing lose face. She would never be that kind of stupid woman. Therefore, she took a deep breath and suppressed her anger. She got out of the car and glared at Princess Anne. However, she did not expect the other party to ignore her. When Li Hongqing saw Tang Jing, she quickly walked up to him. Although there was still suspicion in her eyes, she did not point it out. She knew the relationship between Tang Jing and Yi Dingdang. Back then, Yi Dingdang risked her life to save Tang Jing. That scene was still imprinted in her mind. Therefore, she liked Yi Dingdang very much. Although she did not know why Tang Jing was so intimate with a foreign beauty, she did not directly ask. "Young Master Tang, long time no see. If you didn't come, I would have thought that you had forgotten about this small place of mine," Li Hongqing said with a smile. "How could that be? Am I not here now?" Tang Jing replied. "Who is this beautiful lady?" Li Hongqing asked. Her eyes inadvertently swept over Bruce and Baser. In particular, Bruce's temperament made her secretly speechless. Because she was no stranger to this temperament. There were too many rich people in the capital. Some of them specially went to Europe to hire experienced butlers. This way, they could be distinguished from the nouveau riche and appear to have style. Li Hongqing had seen a few experienced butlers like this. Their temperament was similar to Bruce's, but far inferior. Only by looking at Bruce did she know what was called a professional. What was a noble's butler? It was completely different from those who were trained in batches. Li Hongqing could not help but look up and down at Princess Anne. She wondered what kind of illustrious identity she had to have such a personal butler accompanying her. "Let's go in and introduce." In order not to expose Princess Anne's identity in public, Tang Jing deliberately lowered his voice and said. Li Hongqing understood and nodded. She directly led the four people to a luxurious private room that had already been prepared. Princess Anne inadvertently glanced at the scenery along the way and nodded. "This restaurant is really unique. It's very interesting." Tang Jing chuckled and said, "Boss Li, it's not easy to accept such an evaluation from her. If other people knew about it, they would definitely be jealous of you." Li Hongqing had already guessed that the other's identity was not ordinary. She took advantage of the situation and said, "Hee, then I'll introduce this young lady. Young Master Tang, it's time to introduce her. Don't you think she looks familiar?" Tang Jing asked. After his reminder, Li Hongqing looked at and again. Sure enough, she was somewhat familiar. She doubtfully asked, "She really does look familiar. But I can be sure that I have never seen this young lady before." Li Hongqing opened a business. Her ability to recognize people was not bad. As long as she had seen someone once, she would have some impression of them. Princess Anne saw the conversation between Tang Jing and Li Hongqing. She knew that they had a good relationship. She took the initiative to smile and stretched out her hand. "Hello, my name is Anne." "Anne." Li Hongqing held her hand. She was still a little confused. This name was also somewhat familiar. She seemed to have heard it somewhere before. Suddenly, her heart seemed to have been struck by lightning. Her heart trembled as she exclaimed, "You are Her Highness Princess Anne." In the past few days, there had been a lot of news about Princess Anne in the upper circle of the capital. Ever since she announced that she was visiting China, there were many people in the upper circle of the capital who were active in their thoughts. If they could see Princess Anne and admire her appearance, it would definitely be a great honor. In the future, if word got out, they would definitely be envious. But no one had any way. After all, Anne was an official visitor. How could she casually accept someone's invitation? Li Hongqing did not pay too much attention to this matter, so she did not recognize her for a moment. But at this moment, a stormy sea was set off in her heart. She looked at Princess Anne in disbelief. Even though she was experienced and knowledgeable, she was still at a loss from this sudden attack. Princess Anne was already used to other people's reactions. She was used to it and said, "Right now, I am not a princess. Instead, I am Tang Zhang's friend. Thank you for your hospitality." Li Hongqing was flattered. Although she was curious as to why Tang Zhang would have a relationship with Princess Anne, she did not make a fool of herself. She immediately returned to normal and said, "Your Highness has graced my humble dwelling with your presence. Young Master Tang, many thanks for bringing this glory to my store. We are all friends." Li Hongqing quickly excused herself and went to the kitchen to quickly serve the dishes. She also took out her specialty and brought out all the signature dishes. The group of people ate to their heart's content. Princess Anne liked Hua Xiao's food very much. Yi Dingdang turned her grief and anger into appetite. As if the food was Princess Anne, she swallowed it bite by bite. Good times are always short. Brosnan had already reminded them several times that they had to go back to the hotel. Princess Anne took the initiative to invite Tang Zhang to the hotel to sit down and chat. Suddenly, Yi Dingdong's eyes were almost spitting fire, and Brosnan's eyes were also quite unfriendly. If the media really photographed Princess Anne taking Tang Zhang back to the hotel for the night, even if they did nothing, it would still cause a huge storm. As a butler, he absolutely could not allow this to happen. Tang Zhang did not want to be the target of their anger, so he refused, which made Her Royal Highness feel quite regretful. They agreed that when the event was over in a few days, she must find him. Few after sending Her Royal Highness away, Tang Zhang breathed a sigh of relief. Everything that happened today was really unexpected, and it still made him a little dizzy. Very reluctant, right? A resentful voice floated into his ears. Tang Zhang was startled. He fell into a jar of vinegar. He quickly denied it and said, "How can that be? I can't wait for her to leave." These were the words from the bottom of his heart. He didn't want to have too much interaction with Princess Anne, and he didn't even think that he would have any interaction with her. All of this was a freak combination of factors, and it was not his fault at all. "Humph, you don't mean what you say." Yi Dingdang coldly snorted, "She is Her Royal Highness, and she is so close to you. Which man wouldn't be overjoyed?" Tang Zhang immediately put on a straight face and said seriously, "Those are all vulgar men. How can you put me in their ranks?" "Humph, I think you are not much different from them. Besides, your romantic affairs are not just a little bit." Tang Zhang rolled his eyes and was speechless. The words of a person with a criminal record really had no credibility. "You have nothing to say, right? Tell me honestly, what is going on between you and her? How do you know each other?" Yi Dingdang quickly grabbed Tang Zhang's waist and asked in an unfriendly tone. Tang Zhang did not intend to hide anything, so he told her about the South Sea. Yi Dingdang stared with wide eyes and listened attentively. After a long time, she asked doubtfully, "You are saying that you really don't have that kind of feeling for her?" Tang Zhang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Do you want me to have some kind of feeling for her?" "No." "Humph, if you dare to have any kind of feeling for her, I will kill you." After saying this, she subconsciously reached down to grab him. Hiss. Tang Jing trembled and sucked in a breath of cold air. He looked down and saw that his lower body was tightly grabbed by a pair of small white hands. Boom. Chapter 617. Ouch. Tang Jing bitterly sucked in a breath of cold air and called out. Yi Dingdang jerked her hand back as if she had been electrocuted. Her face was as red as a ripe apple. She wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. Of course, she knew what she had just grabbed. Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. He was also a little overwhelmed by this turn of events. But when he saw her bashful expression, he couldn't help but laugh mischievously. Ding dang, I didn't realize that you were a female hooligan. Yi Ding Dang anxiously glared at him. She angrily stomped her foot and retorted, "You're the hooligan. If you didn't deliberately piss me off, would I do that? I think you've been harboring ill intentions towards me for a long time. That's why you took the opportunity to do this, right?" Tang Zheng said with a mischievous smile. No. No. Yi Ding Dang hurriedly denied it. She shook her head like a rattledrum. Seeing her like this, Tang Zheng couldn't help but laugh out loud. So she had this side of her too. Don't laugh. You're still laughing. Yi Ding Dang was both embarrassed and angry. She directly waved her fist at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He immediately caught her fist and pulled her into Tang Zheng's embrace. She fiercely struggled, but Tang Zheng's strength was too great. His large hand pressed down, restraining her. It was soft to the touch. Tang Zheng shook his head and looked down. To his surprise, he found that his demonic claws had inadvertently pressed against Yi Ding Dang's chest. This position was too intimate. Yi Ding Dang also felt that something was amiss. She stopped resisting. Her face was so red that it looked like it could drip water. Her eyes were watery and filled with lust. Back then, the two of them had shared a bed and had intimate contact. But as time passed, this intimate action still caused ripples in their hearts. Yi Ding Dang felt as if there was a little deer running around in her heart. She almost didn't dare to look at Tang Zheng. She was usually swift and decisive, but at this moment, she still showed the common traits of a girl. Looking at her shy appearance, Tang Zheng could not help but feel his heart itch unbearably, and the movements of his hands involuntarily became bigger. Yi Ding Dang let out a long nasal sound from her throat. Her entire body went soft as she cried out, "Don't." However, the voice of rejection did not have any effect. Instead, it seemed like it was rejecting him, and it ignited the fire in Tang Zheng's heart. Tang Zheng was familiar with the process, and his big hand went in. It was already spring, and Yi Ding Dang was well versed in martial arts. Her thin clothes made it convenient for Tang Zheng. Yi Ding Dang's delicate body suddenly trembled. Her entire body was stretched taut, and she could no longer speak. All that was left was the sound of heavy breathing. How could Tang Zheng stop? He was immersed in his excitement as he attacked the city with ease. Beep beep. Suddenly, a car horn sounded, giving the two of them a fright. Tang Zheng quickly withdrew his hand from her chest. Yi Ding Dang was shocked. She resisted the urge to fall to the ground and quickly covered her chest with her hands. Actually, she was not exposed. It was just that the feeling just now made her feel as if she was floating. There was a strong desire deep in her heart that was calling out to her. A car sped past them. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that they were outside and not at home. He bitterly smiled. Yi Ding Dang took a deep breath and came back to her senses. She quickly jumped to the side and angrily glared at Tang Zheng. She stammered, You're too bad. Hee, I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. Tang Zheng said with a mischievous smile. Hang, hooligan, scoundrel. Yi Ding Dang coquettishly said. This is a hooligan. I haven't even started yet. Tang Zheng said in a threatening tone. Yi Ding Dang's face became even redder as she said, You're not allowed to come over. I'm going home. He hurriedly stopped a taxi that was driving over, got into the car with a whoosh, and drove away. Tang Zheng was stunned in the night wind. He did not expect the situation to take a turn for the worse so quickly. He sniffed his own hand. There was a faint fragrance of a young girl, intoxicating him. Sigh, this time she escaped. Tang Zheng said with regret. Hang, a man who only thinks with his lower body. A voice floated over. Tang Zheng frowned and said, could it be that you were watching? Of course, this person was the lingering Marshal. Only a ghost would want to watch. Marshal said snappily. Is that so? Why do I feel a sour taste of jealousy? Tang Zheng deliberately teased. Marshal coldly snorted and pretended not to hear, but his heart really did feel a trace of sourness. Your ability to entangle women is much stronger than your cultivation. Even the Swedish royal princess has something to do with you. After pausing for a moment, Marshal could not help but choke. Princess Anne's matter was indeed out of her expectations. She originally thought that she understood Tang Zheng well enough. After all, they had been together for so long. However, he could always give her a new surprise from time to time. It was impossible to guard against. Tang Zheng shrugged with a smile and said, I didn't want to either. Didn't you see that I was neither cold nor hot to Anne? Don't think that I don't know about the trick of wanting to capture the old crowd. Want to capture the old crowd? Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily and was too lazy to deny it. He asked, those assassins today, did you see where they came from? The fight with the assassin was very short. Furthermore, the assassin was taken away by the police, so he did not have the chance to interrogate him. Marshal's expression turned cold. He shook his head and said solemnly, I can't tell. The other party deliberately concealed their origins. Is that so? Then we'll have to see if there are any clues from the police's interrogation. Tang Zheng dialed Su Yingtian's number. The impact of this assassination was extremely bad. Although Princess Anne did not say anything, the authorities would definitely be under a lot of pressure. If it was not handled well, it would cause a diplomatic dispute. Su Yingtian's tone was obviously tired as he sighed with emotion. Brother, it's a good thing that I set up 2 moves in the light and in the dark. With an expert like you secretly protecting me, otherwise, there would really be a big mess this time. Actually, he had only thought of it on the spur of the moment. After all, the authorities had already carried out this kind of security mission many times before. However, he never thought that there would be an accident and a horse would stumble. This time, there would be a problem. When he first found out about the assassination, he was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He was secretly glad that Tang Zheng was at the scene. It's just a coincidence. Tang Zheng did not take credit for himself as he calmly said. Hee, you've only joined the National Security Agency for a short period of time. This time, you've made a new contribution. In the future, perhaps I'll have to abdicate my position as the bureau chief. Su Yingtian laughed. Have you found out the identity of the assassin? Tang Zheng did not reply. The other party's mouth is quite hard. However, in the end, we managed to pry it open. The assassination this time is an old acquaintance. Guess who it is? Su Yingtian's tone became somewhat cold. It was obvious that his heart was burning with rage. Tang Zheng's heart slightly moved. Who could an old acquaintance be? Island Nation. Suddenly, a light flashed through his mind as he blurted out. Right, other than them, who else would have such ambitions? Su Yingtian hatefully said, they know that we have captured the royal family's Hirohito. This is revenge. They are attempting to sow discord between our country and the Western countries by assassinating Princess Anne. Although Princess Anne is a Swedish royal princess, she has a great reputation in the Western countries. If she is assassinated in Huaxia, many of our strategies and interests in the Western countries will be affected. As expected, it's a wolf's ambition. Tang Zheng heard this and flew into a rage. The other party's sinister intentions were really hard to guard against. We'll inform the Swedish government. Of course, we can't be the scapegoat. All of this was started by them. Let them lift a rock and smash it on their own feet. Su Tian coldly said. Tang Jing guessed that it must involve a series of actions at the national level. He was very smart and did not ask any more questions. Tang Jing, you and Princess Anne actually have an unspeakable relationship. Hee, you really hit it well. Su Tian teased again. This information was not even known by the National Security Bureau. It was indeed out of his expectations. He could not imagine how Tang Jing would be related to Princess Anne. Since it was already made public, Tang Jing might as well not hide it anymore. Moreover, the more he hid it, the more the National Security Bureau would want to investigate. The nature of the National Security Bureau determined its behavior and standards. You should be familiar with the Dragon Group's scheme on the plane last year, right? I've heard a little about it. The Dragon Group's style of doing things is too unrestrained. At that time, the Dragon Group actually wanted to get rid of Tang Jing in the air. It could be considered as crazy and unscrupulous. After I fell off the plane, I was saved by Princess Anne. At that time, she was sailing around the world. Later on, she was kidnapped by pirates. You should know about it. Oh, so that's how it is. Hee, a hero saving a beauty. So the mysterious knight that everyone is talking about is you. You don't know how many nobles in the Western world are jealous and hateful of you. You actually stole Princess Anne's heart, haha. Su Yingtian's laughter made Tang Jing embarrassed. He awkwardly coughed and said, "Don't laugh at me. She's a princess. Why would she like me? Don't follow the crowd. That's not necessarily true. If it was in the past, I would definitely not believe it. But from Princess Anne's performance today, I think it's most likely true." These years, the marriage partners of the royal family in the Western countries are not like before. It must be a noble of equal status. Many ordinary citizens have also entered the royal family. Moreover, in order to rope in the citizens, the royal family also tends to marry ordinary people. Stop. Seeing him talk non-stop, Tang Jing hurriedly interrupted, "I'm from Huaxia. I don't have anything to do with the Western countries. Don't count me in." That's not necessarily true. If you really succeed in your marriage with Princess Anne, it would definitely be a blessing for Huaxia. Seeing that he was endless, Tang Jing simply hung up the phone. Seeing Wu Zhuozhuo staring at him, he speechlessly rolled his eyes. Are you moved? Marriage with the royal family, this is a good thing that many people dream of. Wu coldly asked. Tang Jing stared at him and said in a bad mood, "Why are you blindly joining in? I'm going back to school." Chapter 6:18. When Tang Jing woke up, he found that the whole world had changed. Last night, he had been interrogated by his roommates for a long time. It was not easy to brush them off. Early in the morning, when he walked on campus, he realized that he had been too naive. In the past, when he won the dance competition, he was in the limelight and could be said to be a famous person on campus. But compared to this, it paled in comparison. He finally knew what madness was. There were strangers directly rushing up to him to ask about him and Princess Anne. Their eyes were burning with the fire of gossip. Of course, there were also Princess Anne's fans who were very angry and directly expressed their anger to him. If he had not seen the situation and fled, he was afraid that he would have been blocked. With great difficulty, he ran to a remote corner and took deep breaths. He finally understood what madness was and how irresistible Princess Anne's charm was. Ring ring ring. His phone rang. "Boss, you're too amazing. The story of you and Princess Anne is already known. Now you've become a national, oh no, a global celebrity. Aime's excited voice sounded. Tang Zheng slapped his forehead. He had a headache. He did not expect that things would develop so out of control. Don't make fun of me. If you have something to say, say it. Is there something wrong with Ling Er? Aime was Ling Er's agent. She had been working on Ling Er's fame and had already begun to see results. Ling Er is fine. It's your business. Boss, I've told you before that you have the potential to become a star. This time, Princess and added fuel to the fire. You've become famous. You can become a real star faster than Ling Er. You can avoid many detours. Aime did not forget to persuade him. Tang Zheng helplessly scratched his head and said, "Don't think too much. I don't want to be famous. You do your job well." After hanging up the phone, Tang Zheng was speechless. Now, he had really become a celebrity. His campus life could no longer be peaceful. No, I have to go out and lie low for a while. I also have to avoid Princess Anne. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and made up his mind. You still want to slip away? Marshall's voice floated over from behind without anyone noticing. Tang Zheng said without turning his head, "It's not to run away, but to avoid those troubles." If Her Highness the Princess knew that you were deliberately avoiding her, wouldn't she be heartbroken? Marshall asked in ridicule. I'm not that important. Tang Zheng shrugged. In fact, Wu was slightly happy in her heart. Last night, she had told her master and mistress about Princess Anne. They had instructed her to try her best to keep Tang Zheng away from Princess Anne. This was because Princess Anne was like a spotlight. No matter where she went, she would attract everyone's attention. If Tang Zheng was too close to her and overexposed, it would not be a good thing for Tang Zheng. They were still worried about whether the Marshall organization and the mysterious power behind them would deal with Tang Zheng. These days, they had not made a move, which was definitely not their style. The calmer it was now, the more shocking the storm that was brewing in the dark. At the critical moment, they could not be careless. Where are you going? Marshall asked. Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and said, the Northwest Desert. Marshall frowned and asked in surprise, what are you going there for? You'll know when you get there. Tang Zheng pretended to be mysterious. He was going to implement a plan against the ghost realm. It was a good opportunity to cool down the princess and incident. After a period of time, when they returned to the capital, everyone's enthusiasm would not be so high. However, before leaving school, he had to ask for leave. After all, he was still a student. If he left school for no reason, it would not be a good thing. Using Professor Chi's name to ask for leave would bring trouble to the other party, so he could only find another way. Fortunately, yesterday, the principal repeatedly invited Tang Zheng to find him when he was free. Since that was the case, then he would go to the principal and ask for leave. This way, no one could say anything. Avoiding the others, he went to the principal's office. When the principal saw Tang Zheng, his face lit up with joy. Although there was such a big storm yesterday, in the end, the higher-ups did not blame Yenqing University too much, which made the pressure on him much less. All of this was thanks to Tang Zheng, so the principal naturally would not use his identity in front of Tang Zheng. When he heard that Tang Zheng wanted to ask for leave, the principal did not ask for the reason. He directly said, after yesterday's incident, "Student Tang Zheng, you really do need to rest. If you need anything else, as long as I can satisfy it, I will do my best." Tang Zheng was stunned. This was too easy to talk to. Nothing. The principal pondered for a moment and said, I heard that you are applying for scholarships now. Tang Zheng nodded. You were first in the final exam last semester, and you also made a lot of contributions to the school. The first-class scholarship is well-deserved. The principal made the final decision, not allowing Tang Zheng to refute. Tang Zheng bitterly smiled. He originally thought that there was no hope for the scholarship, but with the principal's promise, there was naturally no problem. Didn't Chen Hao and Yan Liang want to get rid of his scholarship? Let's see what they can do now. Tang Zheng, in the future, if you have nothing to do, come visit me more often. I like to talk to young elites like you and understand the thoughts of you young people. The principal said with a smile. When I have time, I will definitely pay a visit to the principal. Tang Zheng thanked him again and left the school. In the northwest desert, Tang Zheng and Marshall shuttled back and forth. The boundless yellow sand covered the horizon. The two walked for a long time before Tang Zheng stopped and looked into the distance. He asked in a deep voice, "Do you feel that this desert is a little different?" Marshall looked at him suspiciously. "What's different?" "It seems that the air is not as dry as before. There are even occasional gusts of cool wind blowing over." This was a feeling that he had never felt before in the desert. "Don't be dazed by the sun and have an illusion," Marshall said snappily. Tang Zheng shook his head, unable to figure it out. "Looking at the direction we're heading, could it be that you're going to the Dragon Group's base again?" Marshall asked curiously. After experiencing the dual attacks of Tang Zheng and Lan Yu, the Dragon Group's base had become a mess. Most of the members of the Dragon Group had already withdrawn from the base. Marshall was very clear on this point, so he did not understand why Tang Zheng wanted to return to this old place. Tang Zheng smiled, but did not comment. His body flashed, and like a whirlwind, he continued to move towards his target. Marshall was full of suspicion and immediately chased after him. From afar, Tang Zheng saw a touch of green. In the midst of the yellow sand, that touch of green was especially eye-catching. Tree of Life. Tang Zheng did not stop in the slightest. Instead, he increased his speed, his eyes revealing a blazing light. The Tree of Life covered the sky like a giant umbrella. It was even taller and straighter than the last time Tang Zheng saw it. But what surprised Tang Zheng even more was the scene around the Tree of Life. The yellow sand was replaced by green vegetation. It was like a small forest, full of greenery. There was also a small lake. The clear lake reflected the shadow of the Tree of Life. It was exceptionally quiet. All of this was completely different from the surrounding yellow sand, seeming out of place. Marshall couldn't help but stop in her tracks as she looked at this miraculous scene. Although she had already seen it last time, when she saw it again, the shock in her heart was still indescribable. Suddenly, her heart skipped a beat. She turned her head to look at the excited Tang Zheng. Could it be that he did not come for the Dragon Group, but specifically for the Tree of Life? Tang Zheng took a deep breath. The dense spirit energy in the air made him feel refreshed. The true qi in his meridians involuntarily began to circulate rapidly. The ancient clear heaven scroll and the dragon god arts both began to circulate according to their own trajectories, hungrily absorbing the spirit energy. However, he did not stop to cultivate. Instead, he looked at the houses built around the lawn, as well as the equipment and instruments surrounding the Tree of Life. The man in the white coat was driving the instrument, constantly doing experiments. Occasionally, there would be the sound of the instrument rumbling. "Halt, this is a restricted military zone. Who are you people?" Suddenly, a group of soldiers rushed over as fast as lightning, armed with live ammunition, aiming at Tang Zheng and Marshall. Tang Zheng frowned and glanced at the other party's armband. It was actually the symbol of the Dragon Group. Didn't Marshall say that the Dragon Group base had already evacuated? Why were there still people from the Dragon Group? Tang Zheng did not have the slightest good impression of the Dragon Group. He coldly said, "What are you doing to the Tree of Life?" With that said, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. The other party's temples jumped a few times, and with a click, he pulled the bolt, as if he could pull the trigger at any time. "Who exactly are you people? What is your purpose here?" The news of the Tree of Life was absolutely blocked from the outside world. This person actually shouted out, which meant that the other party was definitely not an ordinary person. The majority of the dragon group had evacuated, but they still left behind a portion of them to be responsible for the protection of the Tree of Life, to protect the normal research of the Tree of Life, and to prevent outsiders from approaching the Tree of Life. In short, these two uninvited guests made the dragon group feel as if they were facing a great enemy. The atmosphere was tense, but Tang Jing leisurely walked forward, completely ignoring the other party's black muzzle. "Stop, or we'll shoot." The members of the dragon group shouted angrily. Whiz! Tang Zhang's figure flashed and passed through the crowd. Bang bang bang. Gunshots rang out like raindrops hitting banana leaves, instantly breaking the original tranquility of this side of the world. Everyone subconsciously looked over, and the researchers also stopped their work. During this period of time, there was no lack of other countries probing. After all, technology was so advanced now, and with the appearance of such a towering tree, other countries would definitely not turn a blind eye to it. However, they were all intercepted by the dragon group. Moreover, this was the hinterland of Huaxia, so it would not be easy for other countries to sneak in without a sound. However, this time, it seemed that the lineup was a little big. Marshall was half a beat slower than Tang Jing, and a string of bullets flew towards her. With a shout, she soared into the air, stepped on everyone's heads, and quickly chased after Tang Jing.